The endless toil of Nile farmers. Imagine yourself awakening before dawn in the fertile floodplains of the Nile, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and the distant croak of frogs. As a farmer in ancient Egypt, around 2500 BCE, during the Old Kingdom, your day begins not with the luxury of choice, but with the unyielding rhythm of the river that sustains an entire civilization. The Nile, that life-giving artery snaking through the desert, dictates every aspect of your existence. You rise from a simple reed mat in your mud brick home, shared with your family and perhaps a few goats, feeling the coolness of the night fade as the sun promises another scorching day. There's no alarm clock, no coffee, just the call of duty to the fields that produce the grain, feeding pharaohs and peasants alike. Your first task is to inspect the irrigation canals, those intricate networks of ditches and basins engineered over generations to harness the annual inundation. The flood season, known as Akit, has just receded, leaving behind a rich layer of black silt that fertilizes the land. But maintaining these waterways is a ceaseless labor. You grab a wooden hoe, its blade worn from years of use, and wade into the mud, clearing debris and reinforcing earthen banks. One misplaced stone could divert water from your plot, spelling disaster for the barley and emmer wheat crops. Historians note that Egyptian agriculture relied on basin irrigation, where fields were divided into compartments, flooded naturally by the Nile's rise. You'd spend hours ensuring the water levels are even, using rudimentary shadoofs, levers to lift water from the river during drier months. The work is backbreaking, your bare feet sinking into the slime, leeches occasionally latching on. A minor annoyance in a world without modern medicine. As the sun climbs higher, turning the sky a relentless blue, you join your neighbors in sowing seeds, broadcasting handfuls of grain across the moist soil. You tread it in with your feet, or those of donkeys, a method unchanged for millennia. The Black Land, or Kemet, as Egyptians called their fertile strip, contrasts sharply with the surrounding Red Land desert, a reminder of how precarious life is. Without the Nile's predictable floods, famine looms. Records from the Palermo Stone chronicle years of low inundation leading to hardship. You'd pause only briefly for a midday meal of coarse bread, onions, and perhaps salted fish, eaten in the shade of a date palm. Water from the river, murky and full of silt, quenches your thirst. Though it carries risks of disease you can't fathom avoiding. This toil isn't solitary, it's communal, enforced by the corvée system, where peasants like you are drafted for state projects during off-seasons. But for now, in the growing season of parade, your focus is the fields. You'd watch for pests, locusts that could devour a harvest overnight whore, monitor the water birds that signal soil health. Ancient texts, like the Satire of the Trades, describe farming as honorable yet grueling, with scribes mocking the farmer's dirt-caked hands and sun-scorched skin. Yet this labor underpins Egypt's stability, allowing surpluses that fund pyramids and temples. As evening approaches, you'd repair tools or weave baskets from papyrus, your body aching, mind fixed on tomorrow's repetition. But what if the floods fail this year, or a new pestilence strikes? How would you, unaccustomed to such unrelenting physical demands, adapt to the uncertainties that these farmers faced with stoic resilience? You've survived the morning's labor in the Nile's fertile embrace. But as the sun arcs higher, the real weight of a farmer's life in ancient Egypt presses down. It's still 2500 BCE, and you're bound to the land. Your survival tethered to the whims of nature and the demands of the state. The fields you tend aren't truly yours. They belong to the pharaoh, a divine ruler whose officials oversee every harvest. You're part of a complex system where your labor feeds not just your family, but the entire machinery of Egyptian society, priests, nobles, and the workers chiseling away at distant pyramids. The Palermo stone and other inscriptions reveal that taxes paid in grain were meticulously calculated, often claiming a third or more of your yield. You'd carry sacks of barley to the local granary, where scribes with reed pens record your contribution on papyrus, their eyes sharp for any shortfall. Failure to meet quotas could mean a beating or worse, as the state's granaries were the backbone of Egypt's economy, ensuring stability through lean years. The midday heat is stifling, your linen kilt clinging to sweat-soaked skin. You take shelter under a makeshift awning of palm fronds, sharing a sparse meal with fellow farmers. The bread is gritty, made from emmer wheat ground on stone querns, and the beer, brewed from barley, is thick and sour, more sustenance than pleasure. Archaeological evidence from sites like Amun-Ra shows that such meals were standard, supplemented occasionally with garlic, lentils, or dried fish. You chew slowly, aware that malnutrition is a silent threat. Skeletal remains from this era often show signs of anemia or stunted growth. Children in your village, including your own, help in the fields, their small hands pulling weeds or scaring birds. Education is a luxury for scribes' sons, not yours. Your children learn the hoe, not hieroglyphs. The afternoon brings more toil. You check the shadoof, its wooden beam creaking as you lift water to higher fields. This simple device, depicted in tomb reliefs, is a marvel of necessity, but its repetitive motion strains your shoulders. You'd notice the soil's texture, its fertility, a gift of the Nile's silt. Yet you're powerless against natural disruptions. The instruction of Amenemop, a later wisdom text, warns of locusts and floods, and you've heard tales of harvests lost to swarms or untimely droughts. Community cooperation is your only defense. Neighbors share tools, labor, and knowledge, a tradition rooted in survival. You might barter a basket of onions for a neighbor's help repairing a canal bank, reinforcing the social bonds that keep villages intact. Beyond the fields, the threat of conscription looms. During the flood season, when farming pauses, you could be summoned for corvée, labor hauling stones for a pharaoh's tomb or repairing dikes. Refusal isn't an option. The Turin Papyrus lists workers punished for desertion. Your life is a cycle of sowing, harvesting, and serving, with little room for rest. As the day wanes, you sharpen your flint sickle, its edge dulled from cutting stalks. The stars emerge, and you wonder about the gods Hapi, god of the Nile, or Osiris, tied to fertility. Their favor feels distant when your back aches and your hands blister. What happens when the harvest is weighed and the scribes find it lacking? Could you navigate the pressures of a system where your labor fuels an empire, yet your own survival hangs by a thread? As twilight settles over the Nile's floodplain in 2500 BCE, you trudge back to your mud brick home, the day's labor etched into your aching muscles. The fields you've tended since dawn are silent now, but the weight of your role as a farmer in ancient Egypt lingers. The harvest is nearing, and with it comes the moment of truth. Will your yield satisfy the pharaoh's scribes? You've spent weeks sowing, irrigating, and guarding your crops against pests, but the outcome hinges on factors beyond your control: flood levels, weather, or divine will. The Nile, your lifeline, is both generous and capricious. Records like the Palermo stone document years when floods were too low or too high, plunging villages into scarcity. You've seen neighbors lose everything, their grain stores seized to meet state quotas, leaving families to beg or barter for scraps. Tonight, you sit with your family, the flickering light of an oil lamp casting shadows on the rough walls. Your meal is predictable: coarse bread, onions, and a sip of beer shared from a clay jug. Your children, weary from chasing birds in the fields, listen as you recount stories of past harvests, blending practical wisdom with tales of gods like Osiris, whose death and rebirth mirror the cycle of planting and growth. These stories, passed down orally and later recorded in texts like the pyramid texts, bind your community to the land and its rhythms. You teach your eldest son to read the stars for planting cues, a skill as vital as wielding a hoe. Archaeological finds from Deir el-Medina show that even rural families held deep beliefs in divine protection, offering small votive statues to deities for bountiful crops. The harvest begins tomorrow, and you'll join neighbors to cut stalks with flint sickles, binding them into sheaves for threshing. Donkeys will tread the grain on a communal threshing floor, a dusty, exhausting process depicted in tomb reliefs. Then comes the reckoning. Scribes will measure your yield with bushels, their calculations determining whether you keep enough to feed your family or face hunger. Evidence from the Karnak papers, letters from a later Middle Kingdom farmer, reveals the constant anxiety of meeting tax obligations while ensuring survival. If your harvest falls short, you might borrow grain at high interest from wealthier landowners, a debt that could bind you for years. Refusal to pay taxes risks punishment, flogging, or forced labor on distant state projects. As you lie on your reed mat, the night air heavy with the scent of the river, you reflect on your place in this ancient world. Your labor feeds Egypt, from the pharaoh's court to the workers carving pyramids in Giza. Yet your life is invisible. In the grand annals, your name unrecorded. The resilience of farmers like you, documented in archaeological remains and sparse texts, built the surplus that sustained an empire for millennia. This uncelebrated toil, mundane yet monumental, shaped history's course, enabling the cultural and architectural feats we marvel at today. Modern agriculture, with its machinery and predictability, owes a debt to your ingenuity. Shadoofs, crop rotation, and communal labor laid the foundation for feeding nations. How does it feel to know that your quiet endurance, lost in the shadow of pyramids, was the heartbeat of a civilization? The systems you navigated, taxes, floods, and fathico, in today's struggles for survival and stability. What might we learn from your unyielding persistence in the face of such unforgiving odds? Navigating the pharaoh's bureaucracy, picture yourself in the bustling administrative heart of Memphis, the capital of ancient Egypt, around 2500 BCE. During the height of the Old Kingdom, you are a low-level scribe, one of thousands tasked with keeping the machinery of the pharaoh's state running smoothly. Your day begins in a cramped mud-brick office near the royal palace, surrounded by the hum of papyrus rustling and the faint scent of drying ink. Your role is modest yet vital, recording grain deliveries, tracking labor quotas, and ensuring the pharaoh's decrees are enacted across the two lands. The bureaucracy of ancient Egypt, as revealed by texts like the Abuser Papyri, was a sprawling network of officials, overseers, and clerks, all serving the divine will of the pharaoh, believed to be a living god. Without your meticulous records, the granaries would falter, temples would go unfunded, and the pyramids would remain half-built. You sit cross-legged on a reed mat, a wooden pallet with black and red ink cakes at your side. Your reed pen scratches across papyrus, noting the latest shipment of barley from a Nile Delta village. Precision is everything. Your tallies must match the physical counts, or you risk the wrath of your overseer, a stern man with a shaved head and a linen kilt starched to perfection. Hieroglyphs and hieratic script, a cursive shorthand, are your tools, learned through years of grueling training in a scribal school. Excavations at sites like Saqqara reveal that scribes were the backbone of Egypt's economy, documenting everything from tax assessments to temple offerings. Your hands ache from hours of writing, and your eyes strain in the dim light of oil lamps, but errors are not tolerated. A single miscalculation could disrupt the supply chain feeding thousands. The bureaucracy you navigate is rigid, governed by tradition and divine order, or mat. You report to a hierarchy of officials, nomarchs, viziers, and treasury overseers, each with their own agendas. Papyrus records from the reign of Djoser show a complex system where loyalty to the state was paramount, yet bribes and favoritism were not unknown. You've heard whispers of scribes altering records for a sack of grain or a copper deben, but such risks could lead to exile or worse. Your daily tasks include cross-referencing delivery logs with field reports, ensuring farmers like those in the Nile's floodplains meet their quotas. You also draft letters for your overseer, sealing them with clay stamps bearing the pharaoh's cartouche, a symbol of divine authority. As you pause to sip water from a clay cup, you overhear merchants arguing outside about trade permits, their voices rising in the crowded marketplace. Your work touches their lives too, as you issue licenses for goods moving along the Nile. The bureaucracy's reach is vast, controlling everything from labor drafts to temple rituals, yet it's painfully slow. A single approval could take weeks, bogged down by layers of oversight. You wonder how you, accustomed to instant communication, would cope with this glacial pace, where every decision is scrutinized for alignment with cosmic order. What happens when a critical record goes missing, or a powerful official demands a favor you can't refuse? How would you balance survival in a system where precision is demanded, yet human flaws lurk beneath the surface? The sun climbs higher over Memphis, and your work as a scribe in 2500 BCE grows more intense. The air in your small office is stifling, dust motes dancing in the slanted light filtering through a high window. Your reed pen moves swiftly, transcribing a report on stone quarried for the pharaoh's latest pyramid. The Abuser Papyri and similar records show that your role extends beyond mere bookkeeping. You're a cog in a vast bureaucratic machine that orchestrates labor, resources, and worship across Egypt. Every stroke of your pen ensures that workers in distant Aswan deliver granite on time, or that priests in Heliopolis receive their daily rations of bread and beer. Mistakes could delay a sacred project, offending the gods and threatening Marat. The cosmic balance your society reveres, your overseer looms nearby, inspecting your work with a critical eye. He's a higher-ranking scribe, trained since childhood in the house of life, a scribal academy where texts on law, medicine, and ritual were copied. You, however, are a junior scribe, barely a decade into your career. Your training was rigorous, thousands of hieroglyphs, mastering hieratic script, and learning to calculate grain volumes with a cubit rod. Archaeological evidence from Deir el-Medina reveals scribes often worked long hours, their social status higher than farmers, but far below nobles. Your linen tunic, though finer than a peasant's, is stained with ink, and your diet bread, onions, and occasional fish mirrors. Theirs status brings no luxury, only responsibility. Today, you face a new challenge, a discrepancy in the grain records, a nomarch from the Delta reports a shortfall, but your ledger shows the delivery was complete. Resolving this requires cross-checking with boatmen's logs and interviewing laborers, a tedious process that could take days. The bureaucracy thrives on documentation. Paris scrolls pile up in your office, stored in clay jars for posterity. You've heard of scribes punished for errors, their names struck from records, a fate akin to oblivion in a culture obsessed with legacy. Yet you also know of opportunities for cunning. Some scribes, as hinted in later texts, like the tale of the eloquent peasant, manipulated records to curry favor or secure extra rations. Temptation beckons, but so does the risk of exposure. You pause to stretch your cramped fingers, glancing at a colleague who's drafting a decree for a festival honoring Osiris. The bureaucracy doesn't just manage resources. It orchestrates Egypt's spiritual life. Your records ensure temples are supplied for rituals, reinforcing the pharaoh's divine role. But the pressure is unrelenting. Deadlines loom, and officials expect flawless work. You navigate a web of loyalties, where pleasing one superior might anger another. The Palermo stone mentions viziers overseeing vast administrative networks, and you're at their mercy, a small player in a grand system. As evening nears, you seal a scroll with a mud stamp, your mind racing. The missing grain could spark an investigation implicating you or others. How would you, used to digital efficiency, endure this labyrinth of papyrus and power, where every decision carries the weight of divine scrutiny? What happens when the truth behind the discrepancy surfaces, and you're caught between loyalty to your overseer and the demands of justice? Night falls over Memphis, and you, a scribe in 2500 BCE, sit in your modest home, the day's bureaucratic grind lingering like dust on your skin. The discrepancy in the grain records has escalated, and you're now summoned to the overseer's chamber tomorrow to explain the shortfall. The stakes are high. Your meticulous records, preserved on fragile papyrus, are the lifeblood of Egypt's stability, and any error, real or perceived, could cost you your position, or worse. The bureaucracy, as evidenced by finds like the Brooklyn papyrus, was unforgiving, with scribes sometimes facing corporal punishment for negligence. You've spent years honing your craft, your literacy, a rare privilege in a land where most toil, in fields or quarries. Yet, this privilege feels like a chain, binding you to a system where precision is both your shield and your burden. You retrace your steps, reviewing the papyrus logs by lamplight. The Delta Nomarch's report doesn't align with the boatmen's tallies, suggesting either theft or an error in transit. You recall a nervous laborer who avoided your gaze during questioning. Could he have siphoned grain for the black market? Such corruption wasn't uncommon. Archaeological records from later periods, like the tomb robbery papyri, reveal officials exploiting their roles for gain. You face a dilemma: report the laborer and risk destabilizing a village dependent on his work, or remain silent and hope. The overseer blames someone else. The bureaucracy demands truth, but survival often requires tact. You've seen colleagues navigate these waters, some rising to favor, others vanishing into obscurity. The resolution comes swiftly. At dawn, you present your findings to the overseer, choosing honesty over self-preservation. You point to inconsistencies in the boatman's logs, supported by your meticulous cross-referencing. The overseer, impressed by your diligence, orders an investigation into the transport crew, sparing you blame. The laborer confesses under pressure, revealing a small ring of grain smugglers. Your role in uncovering this earns you a nod of approval, a rare moment of recognition in a life of anonymity. The system, though rigid, rewards those who uphold, Matt, the principle of order that your records safeguard. Your work ensures the granaries remain stocked, feeding workers and priests, and keeping Egypt's divine machine humming. As you return to your desk, you reflect on your place in this ancient world. Scribes, like you, though rarely celebrated, were the glue of Egyptian civilization, their ledgers enabling monumental achievements like the pyramids of Giza. Your quiet diligence, unrecorded in the grand annals, ensured the flow of resources that built an empire. Today's digital bureaucracies, with their databases and instant audits, owe a debt to your painstaking craft, where a single papyrus could determine a village's fate. The pressure you endured, balancing truth, loyalty, and survival mirrors modern struggles in systems of power and accountability. What does it mean to be a small cog in a vast machine? Your work shaping history, yet leaving no trace of your name. Your resilience in navigating Egypt's bureaucracy, with its blend of order and human frailty, offers a timeless lesson. Even the most mundane tasks, when done with care, hold the power to sustain or unravel a civilization. Daily hygiene in the desert Khufu awaken in a modest mud brick home in the village of Deir el-Medina, around 1500 BCE during Egypt's New Kingdom. The desert air is already warm, the sun barely risen over the horizon, and you face the daily challenge of staying clean in a world where water is scarce and the heat relentless. As an artisan working on royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings, your life is one of relative privilege compared to farmers. But hygiene is a universal struggle in ancient Egypt. The Nile, a half-day's walk away, is your primary water source, and every drop is precious. Your morning begins with a ritual of cleansing, not just for comfort, but for spiritual purity. As cleanliness was tied to Marat, the cosmic order revered by your society, tomb inscriptions and medical texts, like the Eber's papyrus, emphasize that purity pleases the gods. Yet the practical realities of desert life make this a grueling task. Your first act is to fetch water from a communal well, a shallow pit lined with stones, fed by groundwater or Nile overflow. You carry a clay jug, its weight a reminder of the effort hygiene demands. The water is often murky, silt-heavy, and you strain it through a linen cloth before use. Bathing involves splashing this water over your body while standing in a shallow basin, using your hands or a rough cloth to scrub away sweat and dust. Soap, as you know it, doesn't exist. Instead, you rely on natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture of sodium carbonate and bicarbonate, mined from dry lake beds like Wadi Natron mixed with water. It forms a gritty paste that cleanses but irritates your skin. Archaeological finds from workmen's villages show natron was ubiquitous, used for everything from washing bodies to preserving mummies. Hair maintenance is another ordeal. To combat lice, constant threat in close-knit communities, you shave your head, as many Egyptians did, regardless of class. Men and women alike wore wigs for formal occasions, but daily you go bare or wrap a linen cloth around your scalp to shield it from the sun. Razors of sharpened bronze found in tombs at Amun-Ra were used for this, but their dull edges often nick your skin, leaving you vulnerable to infections. Teeth cleaning is rudimentary. You chew on twigs of the Salvadora persica plant, known as the toothbrush tree, its frayed ends scrubbing plaque. The Ebers papyrus mentions pastes of natron and honey for oral hygiene, but these are luxuries beyond your means. Clothing, a simple linen kilt, is washed sparingly to conserve water, beaten against rocks and dried in the sun. The desert's dust clings to everything, and by midday your skin feels gritty again. You've heard of nobles in Thebes with private bathing chambers, but for you, hygiene is a public affair, often done alongside neighbors at the well. This shared struggle fosters community, yet also spreads ailments. Eye infections, like trachoma, were rampant as skeletal remains from the period confirm. As you prepare for your day's work, you wonder, how would you, accustomed to modern plumbing, endure this constant battle against dirt and disease in a land where cleanliness was both a necessity and a near impossible ideal? What unseen threats lurk in the water you so carefully ration? And how would you cope when illness strikes in a world without modern medicine? The sun climbs higher over Deir el-Medina, and you, an artisan in 1500 BCE, feel the desert heat intensifying, turning your freshly washed skin sticky with sweat. Hygiene in ancient Egypt is a relentless task, and by mid-morning, the effort you put into cleansing at dawn feels futile. Your work carving reliefs in the pharaoh's tomb demands focus, but the dust from limestone chips clings to your body, embedding itself in every crease. The Ebers papyrus and other medical texts warn of ailments tied to poor hygiene, skin infections, eye diseases, and parasites, but the tools and knowledge to combat them are limited. You're caught in a cycle where the environment undermines your efforts to stay clean, and the gods, who demand purity for their favor, seem to test your endurance. Water remains your most precious resource, yet it's a source of danger as well. The communal well, where you and your neighbors gather, is a breeding ground for bacteria. Schistosomiasis, a parasitic disease caused by worms in contaminated water, was common as evidenced by mummified remains showing organ damage. You've seen villagers suffer from its symptoms, fever, fatigue, and swollen bellies, yet you have no choice but to use the same water for washing and drinking. Boiling is unknown, and filtering through linen catches only visible debris. You mix natron into the water for washing, its abrasive texture scouring your skin, but it offers little protection against invisible threats. The Edwin Smith Papyrus describes treatments for wounds, but for waterborne diseases, priests and healers rely on incantations and herbal poultices, which you've seen fail more often than succeed. Your diet, heavy in bread and beer, adds to the hygiene challenge. The gritty emmer wheat bread, ground on stone querns, wears down your teeth, leaving them prone to abscesses. Dental remains from this era show rampant decay, even among the young. You rinse your mouth with water mixed with natron, but the relief is temporary. Clothing, too, is a battleground. Your linen kilt, washed yesterday, is already stained with sweat and dust. Laundering it requires hours of scrubbing with natron and pounding on a flat stone by the well, a task your wife and children share. Tomb reliefs depict such scenes, showing women beating linen while men carry water, a communal effort born of necessity. Yet the desert's aridity means clothes dry quickly, a small mercy in a life of constant upkeep. Social expectations add pressure. Cleanliness signals respect for the gods and your community, especially when you enter the tomb to work on sacred reliefs. Before entering, you wash your hands and feet again, a ritual act to avoid defiling the pharaoh's eternal resting place. As you pause to reapply natron to your skin, you feel the weight of these daily rituals, each one a defense against a harsh environment and stricter societal norms. How would you handle the creeping fear of illness, when every drop of water might carry a hidden parasite? What happens when the balance between survival and purity tips and disease strikes your household? Night falls in Deir el-Medina, and you, an artisan in 1500 BCE, sit outside your home, the desert air cooling but still, heavy with the day's dust. The struggle for hygiene has taken a turn. Your youngest child burns with fever, likely from the water you all share at the communal well. The reality of daily life in ancient Egypt's desert heat hits hard. Cleanliness, though vital for spiritual and social standing, is a fragile defense against the unseen threats lurking in your environment. The Eber's Papyrus lists remedies for fever, like willow bark or coriander, but you're no healer, and the village physician-priest is busy with a dozen others struck by similar ailments. Your family's survival depends on the same resilience. That defines your daily hygiene rituals, a testament to the endurance of ordinary Egyptians. You act swiftly, following what you've learned from neighbors and tradition. You bathe your child in cool water mixed with natron, whispering prayers to Sekhmet, goddess of healing. As you do, the community rallies. Your wife's sister brings a poultice of garlic and honey, believed to draw out infection, while a neighbor offers a small amulet inscribed with a spell for protection. Archaeological finds from workmen's villages show such communal support was common, with families sharing resources to combat illness. Yet, the outcome is uncertain. Schistosomiasis and other waterborne diseases, confirmed in mummies from this period, often claimed lives, especially the young. You've seen it before. Neighbor's son lost to a lingering fever, his body prepared for burial with the same natron you use for washing. The crisis passes slowly. After days of care, your child's fever breaks, a relief that feels like divine favor. You resume your hygiene rituals with renewed vigor, knowing they're a lifeline, however imperfect. You shave your head again, scrub your kilt, and chew Salvadora twigs, each act a small rebellion against the desert's harshness. The effort is exhausting, but it binds your community together, shared wells, shared remedies, shared prayers. Tomb inscriptions from Deir el-Medina praise artisans for their devotion, not just to their craft, but to the purity. Your work in the royal tombs, surrounded by sacred hieroglyphs, reminds you that cleanliness is more than physical, it's a bridge to the divine, ensuring your place in the afterlife. Reflecting under the stars, you realize how your quiet persistence mirrors the resilience of countless Egyptians who faced the same daily grind. Their hygiene practices, documented in papyri and archaeological remains, laid the groundwork for modern sanitation, from water filtration to antiseptic salts. Your struggle to stay clean in a world of dust and disease shaped a civilization that thrived for millennia, its monuments enduring while your name fades. Today's world, with its running water and antibiotics, owes a debt to your ingenuity and endurance. Battling the desert's challenges with little more than natron and determination. What does it mean to fight for cleanliness in a world where every resource is scarce, yet purity is demanded by gods and men? Your story, unrecorded yet vital, shows that even the most mundane axe washing, scrubbing, surviving can ripple through history, building a foundation for the comforts we take for granted today. The monotonous diet of bread and beer. Imagine waking in a small mud brick house in the village of Amun-Ra, around 1350 BCE, during Egypt's New Kingdom. You're a laborer, perhaps a stonecutter shaping blocks for the pharaoh's new city, and your day begins with the familiar scent of baking bread, the cornerstone of your existence. In ancient Egypt, food is not just sustenance, but a lifeline tying you to the Nile, the gods, and the state. Your diet, like that of most Egyptians, revolves around two staples, bread and beer. These aren't luxuries, but necessities, as vital as the air you breathe. Archaeological finds from sites like Deir el-Medina and Amun-Ra revealed that these items dominated every meal, from peasants to priests, their preparation consuming much of your day and defining your survival. You start with bread made from emmer wheat or barley grown in the Nile's fertile silt. Your wife and daughters spent the previous evening grinding grain on a stone quern, a back-breaking task that leaves their hands calloused. The flour, coarse and speckled with grit, is mixed with water and a pinch of natron to form a dough. Baking happens in a clay oven outside your home, its dome blackened from years of use. The resulting loaves, flat and dense, are your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, often eaten with raw onions or garlic for flavor. The Eber's papyrus mentions bread as a base for medicinal pastes, but for you, it's simply survival. Dental remains from this era show worn teeth, the result of stone fragments in the flour, a silent toll of this daily staple. Beer, the other pillar of your diet, is more than a drink, it's a caloric lifeline. Brewed from barley, it's thick, slightly sour, and mildly alcoholic, sipped from clay jars through reed straws to filter out sediment. You help brew it at home, soaking barley in water, letting it sprout, and mixing it with yeast from previous batches. Excavations at Amun-Ra uncover brewing vats in nearly every household, showing how central beer was to daily life. It's safer than Nile water, often contaminated with silt or parasites, and provides essential nutrients. Workers' rations, detailed in texts like the Karnak papers, included daily allotments of bread and beer, often paid as wages. You receive 10 loaves and 2 jugs daily, enough to feed your family, though the monotony gnaws at you. This diet, while sustaining, is relentless in its sameness. Fresh vegetables or meat are rare, perhaps a fish caught in the Nile, or a handful of dates on a festival day. The state's granaries, filled by farmers' labor, ensure your rations. But variety is a privilege for the elite. As you chew your gritty bread under the scorching sun, you feel the weight of this repetitive existence. The gods, like Osiris, are tied to grain and fertility, and your meals are almost sacred. Yet they leave your stomach rumbling for something more. How would you, used to diverse modern diets, endure this unvarying cycle of bread and beer? What happens when the harvest fails, and even these staples dwindle, threatening your family's survival? The midday sun beats down on Amun-Ra, and you, a laborer in 1350 BCE, pause your work shaping limestone blocks to eat your daily ration, a dense loaf of emmer bread and a jug of beer. The monotony of this diet, central to life in ancient Egypt, is inescapable. Bread and beer aren't just food, they're the currency of survival, binding you to the Nile's rhythms and the pharaohs' dichotomy. Your family's livelihood depends on the state's grain stores, which archaeological evidence from sites like Giza shows were meticulously managed to feed workers like you. The Karnak papers reveal that a laborer's rationed in loaves and 2 jugs of beer provided about 4,000 calories daily, enough for your grueling tasks, but offering little variety. As you tear into the gritty bread, its texture rough against your worn teeth, you wonder how long you can endure this sameness. Preparing these staples is a household affair, consuming hours of your family's time. Your wife kneads dough with water drawn from a distant well, her hands dusted with flour that carries tiny stone fragments from the quern. The oven, a clay dome in your courtyard, radiates heat as she bakes, producing loaves that must last the week. Beer brewing is equally laborious. You soak barley in clay pots, letting it malt under the sun, then mix it with water and yeast, stirring with a wooden paddle. Tomb reliefs from Saqqara depict such scenes, showing women straining mash through baskets to produce the cloudy, neutral brew. This beer, low in alcohol but high in calories, is safer than Nile water, which carries risks of schistosomiasis, as mummified remains confirm. Yet the process is exhausting, and the flavor, always tart, grows tiresome. Occasionally, you supplement your meals with Nile fish dried in the sun, or lentils traded with a neighbor. Festivals bring rare treat states or honey, but these are fleeting. The instruction of Ani, a wisdom text, advises contentment with simple fare, but the reality tests your patience. Children in your village, their growth stunted by limited nutrition, show signs of anemia, as skeletal evidence from Amun-Ra suggests. Your own teeth ache, worn by the grit in every bite, a common ailment noted in medical papyri. The state's efficiency ensures your rations, but drought or poor floods could disrupt the supply. The Palermo stone records years of famine when granaries emptied, forcing families to barter tools or labor for food as you sip your beer. Its sediment catching in the reed straw, you feel the weight of this repetitive diet. It sustains you, yes, but it also binds you to a cycle of labor and dependence. The gods, invoked in every meal, seem distant when your stomach craves variety. Your neighbors share the same fare, their lives mirroring yours, yet there's camaraderie in this shared struggle. How would you, accustomed to modern abundance, cope with a life where every meal is a variation of the same two foods? What happens when the Nile's floods falter and the granaries can't provide? How would you navigate the hunger that threatens to unravel the delicate balance of your community's survival? Night falls over Amun-Ra, and you, a laborer in 1350 BCE, sit with your family, sharing the last of today's bread and beer. The monotonous diet of ancient Egypt has sustained you through another day of cutting stone, but whispers of a poor harvest ripple through the village. The Nile's flood was weaker this year, and the granaries, as you've heard from a passing scribe, are low. The Palermo stone and other records warn of such times when famine turned bread and beer from staples into luxuries. Your family's survival hangs on the state's ability to manage its stores, and your own resourcefulness to stretch what little you have. The weight of this unchanging diet, gritty loaves and sour beer, feels heavier now as hunger looms. Like a desert storm, you act with the pragmatism of those who faced scarcity before. Your wife barters a woven mat for a small sack of lentils, while you trade a day's labor for dried fish from a Nile fisherman. The community pulls together, as it always has. Neighbors share brewing yeast or a handful of barley, a practice seen in archaeological remains from Deir el-Medina. You ration your bread, giving larger portions to your children, whose thin frames worry you. The Ebers papyrus lists hunger remedies, herbs like coriander to ease stomach pains, but these are scarce. You pray to Osiris, god of fertility, offering a small loaf at a household shrine, hoping for a better flood next season. Such rituals, depicted in tomb art, were as vital as food itself, tying your diet to divine will. The crisis eases as the state redistributes grain from distant granaries, a testament to Egypt's bureaucratic efficiency. Your rations resume, though smaller, and you resume the grind of baking and brewing. The relief is profound, but the monotony returns with it. Each loaf, each jug, is a reminder of your dependence on the Nile and the pharaohs' system. Yet this diet, however dull, fueled a civilization. The bread and beer you consume powered the workers who built Amarna's temples and Thebes' tombs, their labor immortalized in stone while your name fades. Archaeological studies show this diet, rich in carbohydrates, sustained millions, enabling Egypt's cultural heights despite its nutritional limits, reflecting under the stars. You see how your endurance mirrors that of countless others who lived on bread and beer. Their resilience, uncelebrated in hieroglyphs, underpinned an empire's grandeur. Modern diets, with their variety and convenience, owe a nod to your ingenuity, brewing nutrient rich beer, baking durable loaves, and surviving on the Nile's bounty. The struggle to eat day after day shaped a society that valued stability. Overindulgence, a lesson in making do with little. What does it mean to live on the edge of scarcity, where every meal is both a gift and a grind? Your story, woven into the fabric of Egypt's history, shows that even the most repetitive, axe-kneading, dough-sipping beer carry the weight of survival, sustaining a civilization that still captivates the world today. Coping with plagues and parasites, you wake in a modest home in Thebes, around 1550 BCE. During Egypt's New Kingdom, the air already thick with the heat of the Nile Valley. As a potter crafting vessels for local merchants, your life is one of steady labor, but today, a nagging itch and a dull ache in your gut remind you of a constant threat: disease. In ancient Egypt, plagues and parasites were as much a part of daily life as the Nile's floods. The river, your lifeline, is also a breeding ground for unseen enemies, worms, bacteria, and infections that thrive in its waters and the surrounding mud. Medical texts like the Ebers Papyrus and Edwin Smith Papyrus, discovered in modern times, detail a world where illness was both a physical and spiritual battle, fought with limited tools and boundless resilience. Your morning begins with a ritual cleansing at a communal well, but the water, drawn from the Nile's channels, carries risks. Schistosomiasis, a parasitic infection caused by tiny worms, is rampant, as confirmed by mummified remains showing scarred livers and bladders. You've seen neighbors suffer its symptoms: fatigue, fever, and blood in their urine. Yet you have no choice but to use this water for drinking, cooking, and washing. Bathing with natron, a salty mineral, helps keep your skin clean, but it does little against parasites burrowing through your feet as you wade through muddy fields to gather clay. The Ebers Papyrus lists over 700 remedies, many involving garlic or honey, but these are often out of reach for a potter like you. Your family is not spared. Your youngest daughter coughs persistently, a dry rasp that worries you. Respiratory infections, spread in cramped villages, were common as skeletal. Evidence from Amun-Ra shows you chew Salvadora twigs to clean your teeth, but your gums bleed, a sign of malnutrition or disease. The local healer, a priest of Sekhmet, goddess of healing, might offer incantations or a poultice of herbs, but his services come at a cost, perhaps a clay jar or a day's labor. Temples, central to community life, double as clinics, where priests blend magic with medicine, as seen in inscriptions from Deir, el-Medina. You offer a small amulet to Sekhmet, praying for protection. But the fear of plague lingers. The community shares this burden. Neighbors exchange remedies: onion juice for fevers, natron for wounds, while gossip spreads about a nearby village struck by a pestilence, possibly smallpox or dysentery, as hinted in ancient texts. Your work continues, shaping pots under the sun, but each itch or ache feels like a warning. The gods, you're taught, send disease to punish or test. Yet your survival depends on practical measures: voiding stagnant water, keeping your home swept, and praying. How would you, used to modern medicine, face a world where every sip of water or step in the mud could bring sickness? What happens when disease spreads beyond your control, threatening not just your family, but the entire village's fragile existence? Midday. In Thebes, 1550 BCE, and you, a potter, feel the weight of the desert heat as you shape clay under a palm frond awning. The persistent itch on your skin and the dull pain in your abdomen are growing harder to ignore. Signs of the parasites and plagues that haunt ancient Egypt. The Nile, vital to your survival, is a paradox. Its waters sustain life but carry schism and other infections, as confirmed by mummified remains showing organ damage. The Eber's papyrus describes symptoms you recognize: fatigue, fever, and swollen bellies, treated with bitter herbs or incantations. But as a laborer, you lack access to the exotic remedies, myrrh or frankincense for nobles. Your defense is limited to natron washes and communal knowledge, passed down through generations. Your daughter's cough worsens, her small frame trembling as she helps carry water. Respiratory ailments, likely tuberculosis or bronchitis, were common, as skeletal evidence from Deir el-Medina reveals. You visit the local healer, a priest of Sekhmet, who chants over a paste of garlic and honey applied to her chest. His fia, finely crafted pots, stretches your resources thin. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, a surgical text, shows Egyptians understood some ailments, like wounds, but internal diseases baffled them. Priests attribute illness to divine wrath or evil spirits, and you join neighbors in offering bread at a shrine, seeking mercy. The community's strength lies in shared rituals, yet fear spreads faster than remedies. When word arrives of a nearby village quarantined for a burning plague, possibly dysentery, daily life doesn't pause for sickness. You need clay, your hands raw from natron and water exposure, knowing that stopping work means no rations. The state provides bread and beer, but illness can disrupt this system. The Khufu Papyrus mentions workers excused from labor due to sickness of the eyes or snakebite, but chronic conditions like yours receive little sympathy. Parasites, especially from wading in irrigation canals, weaken you over time. You've seen neighbors collapse, their bodies too frail to resist, yet you persist, boiling water when you can afford the fuel, a rare practice gleaned from a trader's advice. Your wife sweeps the house daily, keeping out fleas, but the cramped village fosters disease. The social toll is heavy. Sick families face isolation as neighbors fear contagion. You've heard of entire households shunned, their offerings refused at temples. Still, resilience shines through. Women share herbal recipes, and elders recount surviving past plagues. Tomb inscriptions praise communal solidarity, but the reality is grim. Survival often depends on luck and endurance. As you mold another pot, you wonder how you, accustomed to antibiotics and clean water, would navigate this world where every ailment feels like a divine test. What happens when the plague reaches your village and the healer's remedies fail? How would you protect your family when the line between survival and surrender blurs? Night blankets, Thebes, in 1550 BCE, and you, a potter, sit by your daughter's side, her cough quieter but still troubling. The specter of plagues and parasites has grown real. Word spreads that the burning plague from a nearby village has reached your own. Neighbors report fevers and bloody stools, symptoms of dysentery, a killer in crowded settlements like yours. The Eber's Papyrus offers no cure for such outbreaks, only palliatives like acacia gum or natron solutions. Your family's survival, like that of countless Egyptians, hinges on resilience, communal support, and fragile hope. The Nile, your lifeline, has betrayed you. Its waters carrying the parasites that weaken your body and the disease now threatening your village. You act with urgency, drawing on collective wisdom. You boil water, a rare but learned precaution, and ration your bread and beer to keep your family strong. Your wife prepares a paste of onions and natron for your daughter, while you trade a pot for a healer's incantation, a desperate blend of faith and practicality. Archaeological evidence from Deir el-Medina shows communities rallying during crisis. Neighbors shared food, cared for orphans, and buried the dead with natron to honor their passage. Your village does the same, with women tending the sick and men digging graves outside the settlement. The priest of Sekhmet leads rituals, burning herbs to appease the gods, but the death toll rises. Mummified remains from this era confirm dysentery's toll, with dehydrated bodies bearing its marks. The plague's grip eventually weakens, perhaps due to quarantine or the god's mercy. Your daughter recovers, her cough fading, and you resume your work, shaping pots with hands still raw from natron. The village rebuilds, but scars remain: empty homes, orphaned children, and a lingering fear of the Nile's hidden dangers. Your survival reflects the tenacity of ordinary Egyptians, whose endurance through disease sustained a civilization. The Ebers and Edwin Smith papyri show a sophisticated, if limited. Your pots, used to store remedies or offerings, played a small but vital role in this system, linking daily labor to survival. Reflecting under the stars, you see how your struggle against parasites and plagues mirrors the quiet heroism of millions. Their persistence, unrecorded in grand annals, enabled Egypt's temples and tombs to rise. Modern medicine, with its vaccines and sanitation, owes a debt to your trial-and-error remedies, natrons, antiseptic properties, herbal poultices, and communal care. Your fight, though mundane, was a cornerstone of a society that thrived against the odds. What does it mean to face death daily, armed only with grit and shared hope? Your story, etched in clay and survival, reminds us that even the smallest acts boiling water, praying, enduring built the foundation of a civilization whose legacy endures, while teaching us humility in the face of nature's unseen forces. The rigid social hierarchy around 1470 BCE, during Egypt's new kingdom, as a servant in the home of a higher-ranking noble. The air is heavy with the scent of baking bread and the distant hum of the city, but your place in ancient Egypt's rigid social hierarchy defines every moment of your day. Society here is a pyramid as unyielding as those at Giza. The pharaoh, a living god, sits at the apex, followed by nobles, priests, artisans, and farmers, with servants and slaves like you at the bottom. Inscriptions from tombs and texts like the satire of the trades depict a world where status determines your worth, your duties, and even your survival. Your life is one of toil, bound by rules that offer little hope of rising above your station. Your morning begins before dawn, fetching water from a nearby well for the noble's family. You carry heavy clay jars, your shoulders aching, knowing that any spill could earn a sharp rebuke. Your role is to serve the household, cleaning, preparing food, and tending to the needs of the noble's children. The noble, a vizier's deputy, overseeing trade, lives in a spacious villa with painted walls and a garden, a stark contrast to your cramped quarters shared with other servants. Archaeological finds from Amun-Ra show that servants lived in simple mud brick rooms, often without windows, their lives dictated by the whims of their masters. Your linen kilt, patched and worn, marks your low status, while the noble's family wears fine, pleated garments. The hierarchy is enforced by tradition and divine will, or mat, the pharaoh's authority, recorded in texts like the Palermo. Stone flows downward, and obedience is expected at every level. You've heard of servants whipped for minor infractions, as documented in the Turin judicial papyrus. Yet, you also see small acts of agency servants whispering complaints or bartering extra bread for favors. Your tasks include sweeping floors, grinding grain, and assisting the cook, who prepares lavish meals of meat and fruit you'll never taste. The noble's wife, adorned with jewelry, barely acknowledges you, her status reinforced by your deference. Social mobility is rare. The instruction of any advises humility, warning that defying your place risks divine punishment. Community offers some solace. Other servants share stories of their villages, their lives before being bound to service, often due to debt or capture in war. You eat together, sharing coarse bread and beer, rations meager compared to the noble's table. The hierarchy extends beyond the household. Priests and scribes, higher in status, pass by without a glance. As you scrub a courtyard under the scorching sun, you feel the weight of your invisible role, vital yet uncelebrated. How would you, used to modern notions of equality, endure a world where your worth is fixed by birth and service? What happens when a mistake in your duties draws the noble's wrath, or when a rare opportunity to gain favor tests your place in this unyielding order? Midday in Memphis, 1470 BCE, and you, a servant in a noble's household, feel the oppressive heat as you scrub clay pots in the courtyard. The rigid social hierarchy of ancient Egypt shapes every interaction. Your low status, a constant reminder of your place beneath nobles, priests, and even artisans. The noble's villa buzzes with active scribes, tallying trade goods, guards, patrolling, and you, invisible yet essential, ensuring the household runs smoothly. Tomb reliefs from Saqqara depict servants like you, bowing before their masters, their lives defined by service. The satire of the trades mocks the toil of lower classes, praising scribes while dismissing your labor as menial. Yet your work sustains the elite's luxury. Your tasks are endless. You haul water, clean linens, and prepare the noble's bath, using natron to purify the water as priests do for rituals. The noble, a deputy vizier, hosts merchants today, and you're tasked with serving beer and bread, careful not to meet their eyes. A breach of etiquette could mean punishment. The Turin judicial papyrus records cases of servants beaten for disrespect, and you've seen it happen. Yet, whispers among servants hint at small rebellions, spilling wine to spite a cruel overseer, or hiding a broken pot to avoid blame. These acts, though risky, are your only defiance in a system where Mat demands obedience to maintain cosmic order. A chance for favor arises. The noble's wife needs a servant to accompany her to the temple, a task requiring trustworthiness. You volunteer, hoping to earn extra rations or leniency. But the choice isn't yours. An older servant, favored for years of loyalty, is chosen instead. The hierarchy within the servant class is as rigid as the broader society, with seniority trumping effort. Archaeological evidence from Deir el-Medina shows that even low-status workers competed for favor. There lives a delicate balance of duty and ambition. Your diet, of course, bread and thin beer, supplemented rarely with fish, keeps you just strong enough to work. But malnutrition weakens your frame, as skeletal remains from the period confirm. The community of servants is your refuge. You share stories of distant homes, some lost to debt or war, and trade tips for surviving the noble's temper. Yet, the hierarchy isolates you from others' artisans, look down on you, and nobles see you as a tool. As you sweep the villas floors, you overhear the noble discussing a trade dispute, his wealth built on your unseen labor. The instruction of any warns against questioning your lot, but resentment simmers. How would you, raised in a world of opportunity, navigate this suffocating structure where every gesture reinforces your place? What happens when a mistake reel or accused puts you at the mercy of the noble's judgment, threatening your fragile existence in this unyielding hierarchy? Night falls over Memphis in 1470 BCE, and you, a servant, sit in the dim light of your cramped quarters, the day's labor lingering in your sore muscles. The rigid social hierarchy of ancient Egypt has tested you today. A broken pot, accidentally knocked over while serving the noble's guests, has drawn his ire. The noble, a deputy vizier, demands perfection, and your mistake risks punishment, your life. Bound to the bottom of Egypt's social pyramid, hangs on the whims of those above you. Yet, this incident also reveals the resilience that defines your existence. A quiet strength shared by countless others in your position. You face the noble at dawn, head bowed, offering an apology and a promise to replace the pot. To your surprise, a senior servant speaks on your behalf, citing your diligence. The noble, swayed by his wife's recent temple visit, where servants proved reliable, grants leniency, a rare moment of mercy in a system where Matt demands order, not compassion. You're spared, but tasked with extra work, shaping clay for new pots without pay. This outcome, common in records from Deir el-Medina, shows the delicate balance of survival. Obedience ensures your place, but errors could append it. You learn to tread carefully, knowing favor is fleeting. Your life resumes, its rhythm fetching water, cleaning, serving each task, reinforcing your role. The community of servants sustains you. They share bread, teach you to mend pots, and whisper of others who endured worse. Archaeological finds revealed that servants, though low in status, formed tight-knit networks, bartering skills and support to survive. Your work, though uncelebrated, props up the noble's wealth, which funds temples and trade, as seen in inscriptions detailing elite households. The hierarchy, rigid as the stone of Gizeh's pyramids, depends on your labor, yet offers no path upward. The instruction of any advises acceptance, but your survival hinges on small acts of cunning, hiding a mistake, earning a scrap of favor, reflecting under the stars. You see how your endurance mirrors that of millions whose unseen toil built Egypt's grandeur. Their lives, rarely recorded, were the foundation of a civilization that awed the world. Modern notions of equality owe a debt to your quiet defiance. navigating a system that bound you yet failed to break you. The hierarchy you endured, with its stark divisions, echoes in today's struggles for fairness, reminding us that resilience in the face of constraint is a timeless human trait. What does it mean to live in a world where your worth is fixed, yet your labor sustains an empire? Your story, woven into the fabric of Egypt's history, shows that even the lowest roles, performed with grit, shaped a legacy that endures, teaching us the power of perseverance in an unyielding world. Building monuments without modern tools, you rise before dawn in Giza, around 2550 BCE. During Egypt's Old Kingdom, your muscles already sore from yesterday's labor. As a worker on the Great Pyramid of Khufu, your life is consumed by the monumental task of constructing a tomb for a god-king, a structure meant to defy time itself. In ancient Egypt, building such wonders relied on sheer human effort, basic tools, and ingenious techniques, not the machines you might expect today. The pyramid texts and archaeological evidence from workers' villages reveal a workforce of thousands of farmers, laborers, and skilled artisans bound by duty and survival. Your role, hauling limestone blocks across the desert, is grueling, yet it carries the weight of divine purpose. Ensuring the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife, your day begins at the quarry, a short walk from the pyramid site. You wield a copper chisel and a dolerite hammer, tools unchanged for generations, to chip away at limestone cliffs. Each strike sends dust into your lungs, the sun already scorching your bare shoulders. The blocks, weighing 2 tons or more, are cut with precision, guided by wooden wedges and water to split stone along natural faults. Excavations at Giza show ramps of earth and rubble used to drag these blocks to the pyramid, a process requiring teams of men pulling ropes made of papyrus or palm fiber. You join a crew of 20, chanting to keep rhythm, your feet sinking into the sand as you drag a block up a ramp, its surface slick with mud to reduce friction. The work is relentless, driven by overseers who enforce quotas with shouts and, occasionally, whips, as hinted in the Turin papyrus. Your rations, bread, beer, and onions, sustain you, but the diet, detailed in the Karnak papers, barely fuels the effort required. Injuries are common. Skeletal remains from workers' cemeteries reveal fractured bones and worn joints. Yet, the community binds you, neighbors share water, bind wounds, and sing hymns to Ptah, god of craftsmen. The pyramid, rising layer by layer, is a marvel of organization, with surveyors using plumb bobs and sighting tools to ensure perfect alignment, as evidenced by the structure's enduring precision. Your labor is a paradox, backbreaking yet sacred. The pharaoh's divine status, reinforced by texts like the Palermo stone, makes your work a service to Mot, the cosmic order. But as you pause, wiping sweat from your brow, you feel the toll on your body. The ramp stretches higher each day, and the blocks grow heavier as the pyramid nears completion. How would you, accustomed to modern machinery, endure this endless toil with only stone, wood, and muscle? What happens when an injury or a misstep threatens your ability to work? Or when the pharaoh's deadline looms, pushing the limits of your endurance? Midday in Giza, 2550 BCE, and you, a laborer on the Great Pyramid of Khufu, feel the sun's relentless heat as you drag another limestone block up a muddy ramp. The task of building monuments without modern tools defines your existence, a testament to ancient Egypt's ingenuity and collective will. The ramps, described in archaeological studies of Giza, are engineering marvels. Long, sloping paths of earth and rubble, widened daily to accommodate the pyramid's rising tiers. Your team of 20 pulls in unison, ropes cutting into your palms, guided by an overseer's rhythmic chants. Each block, weighing as much as 2 elephants, must be placed with precision, aligned using copper tools and star sightings, as evidenced by the pyramid's near-perfect geometry. The work is unforgiving. Your copper chisel, softened by constant use, needs frequent sharpening, a task assigned to skilled artisans who rank above you. The Westcar papyrus hints at the scale of labor. Tens of thousands worked seasonally, many farmers, like you, conscripted. During the Nile's flood season, under the corvée system, injuries mount: a twisted ankle from a loose stone, a gash from a slipping chisel. Skeletal remains from Giza's workers' cemeteries show healed fractures and arthritis, signs of a life spent hauling stone. You bind your wounds with linen strips, relying on a healer's natron paste, as the Ebers papyrus describes. But pain is a constant companion. Rations of bread and beer, distributed from state granaries, keep you alive, but malnutrition weakens your frame, as seen in archaeological evidence. Community is your anchor. You share a cramped barracks with other laborers, swapping stories of home and tips for easing rope burns. The camaraderie, reflected in inscriptions from Deir el-Medina, sustains you through the grind. Overseers, though strict, organize rest, breaks under palm frond shelters, where you sip water and chew onions. The pyramid's progress, visible with each new layer, inspires awe. But also, dread deadlines tied to the pharaoh's reign are unyielding. A rumor spreads of a worker crushed under a falling block, a reminder of the risks you face. The gods, like Ptah and Ra, are invoked in chants, their favor sought to protect the project and your soul. A new challenge looms. The ramp must be extended, and your team is tasked with hauling heavier granite blocks from distant Aswan, transported by barge down the Nile. The effort requires double the men, stretching your strength to its limit. You wonder how you used to cranes and engines would cope with this reliance on muscle and wit, where a single miscalculation could halt progress or cost lives. What happens when the granite arrives, and the overseer demands faster work to meet the pharaoh's deadline? How would you survive the strain when your body and spirit are pushed to the breaking point? Night settles over Giza in 2550 BCE, and you, a laborer on the Great Pyramid, huddle in a worker's barracks, the day's toil etched into your weary body. The challenge of building monuments without modern tools has intensified. The granite blocks from Aswan have arrived, each weighing up to 60 tons. And the overseer demands they be set before the next lunar festival. The Great Pyramid, nearing its peak, is a testament to Egypt's ambition, but its completion tests your endurance. The Turin papyrus hints at the pressure workers faced punishment for delays, and your team's exhaustion is palpable. Your hands blistered from ropes, and your back strained from hauling, beg for rest. But the pharaoh's divine will, tied to mat, drives you forward. You rise at dawn, joining a larger crew to maneuver the granite blocks. The ramps, reinforced with timber grown under the weight, and you pull alongside dozens, chanting to Horus for strength. A near-miss block slips. Grazing a fellow worker minds you of the danger. Archaeological evidence from Giza shows workers' graves with signs of trauma, yet also care, with bones set and buried with offerings. Your team rallies, using levers and rollers, techniques seen in tomb reliefs, to guide the stone into place. The overseer, impressed by your crew's precision, grants extra beer rations, a rare reprieve. The granite, polished to gleam under Ra's light, crowns the pyramid. A step closer to immortality for Khufu. The work concludes, but not without cost. Your ankle, twisted days ago, throbs, and you lean on a comrade for support. The community, tight-knit from shared hardship, binds your injury with linen and natron, as the Ebers papyrus advises. The pyramid stands complete, its 2.3 million blocks, a marvel that will endure millennia, as modern surveys confirm. Your labor, though unrecorded, fueled this achievement, one of millions whose sweat built Egypt's legacy. The camaraderie and ingenuity, ramps, levers, and collective will made the impossible possible, a feat no machine could replicate with such human spirit, reflecting under the stars. You see your role in a civilization that valued eternity over individual glory, your pain and persistence mirrored in countless workers, crafted wonders that awe the world today. Modern construction, with its cranes and computers, owes a debt to your techniques. Ramps and rollers still inspire engineers. The pyramid, a symbol of order, stands because of your unseen toil. What does it mean to labor for a god-king's dream? Your name lost, but your work eternal. Your story, carved in stone and silence, teaches that even the most grueling tasks, done with grit and unity, can shape history, reminding us of the power of collective human effort in the face of monumental challenges. Religious rituals and superstitions you awaken in a small mud brick home in Thebes, around 1450 BCE, during Egypt's New Kingdom. The air thick with the scent of incense drifting from a nearby temple. As a weaver crafting linen for priestly garments, your life is woven into the fabric of ancient Egypt's religious rituals and superstitions, which permeate every aspect of existence. The gods Ra, Osiris, Isis, and countless others govern the Nile's floods, your health and the pharaoh's power, their will enforced through daily offerings and elaborate ceremonies. Texts like the Book of the Dead and temple inscriptions from Karnak reveal a society where spiritual devotion was as essential as food, shaping your actions and beliefs. Your day begins with a prayer to Hathor, goddess of love and protection, a small act to ensure your family's safety. Your morning task is to deliver linen to the temple of Amun, a sprawling complex where priests perform rituals to maintain Mat, the cosmic order. You carry a bundle of finely woven cloth, your hands calloused from the loom, and approach the temple's outer courtyard, where only the pure may enter. Before stepping inside, you wash your hands and feet with natron-laced water, a ritual purification detailed in the Ebers papyrus. Superstitions guide you. You avoid stepping on the threshold, believed to harbor spirits, and wear an amulet of an ankh for protection. The temple hums with activity priests chanting, offering bread and beer to Amun's statue, their shaved heads gleaming under the sun. Your linen will drape the god's image, a sacred duty that elevates your humble work. At home, superstitions shape daily life. You sweep the floor to ward off evil spirits, as taught by village elders, and place a small statue of Base, protector of households, near your door. The Book of the Dead mentions spells to guard against misfortune, and you've seen neighbors bury amulets under doorways to deter scorpions or bad omens. Dreams are omens to last night's vision of a falcon, sacred to Horus, fills you with hope, but you consult a local seer to confirm its meaning. Archaeological finds from Deir el-Medina show households filled with such charms, reflecting a deep fear of divine displeasure. Your children helping with the loom wear protective beads, a precaution against the evil eye. The community reinforces these beliefs. Neighbors gather to share offerings during festivals, their voices rising in hymns to Osiris. Yet the weight of ritual is heavy. Failure to honor the gods risks famine or plague. As priests warn, you offer a loaf at a household shrine, praying for a good harvest. How would you, accustomed to secular routines, navigate a world where every action is a dialogue with the divine, and superstition is as real as the Nile? What happens when a ritual goes awry, or a superstition suggests calamity, testing your faith in the gods' protection? Midday in Thebes, 1450 BCE, and you, a weaver, pause your work at the loom under the shade of a sycamore tree, the hum of temple chants echoing in the distance. Religious rituals and superstitions in ancient Egypt are not mere traditions. They are the scaffolding of your life, binding you to the gods and the community. The Temple of Amun, where you delivered linen this morning, is the heart of this spiritual world. Its priests performing daily rites to ensure Ra's journey across the sky and the Nile's life-giving floods. The Book of the Dead and inscriptions from Karnak describe these ceremonies, where offerings of bread, beer, and incense maintain Ma'at, the cosmic balance. Your role, though small, connects you to this divine order. Your linen adorning sacred spaces. Your work is steeped in ritual. Before weaving, you sprinkle natron on your loom, a purification act to honor Thoth, god of crafts, as seen in reliefs from Saqqara. Superstitions guide every step. You avoid working during the dark of the moon, believed to invite chaos, and tie a knot in your thread to trap bad spirits, a practice common in Deir el-Medina households. A neighbor warns that a dropped spindle foretells misfortune, so you handle your tools with care. The community shares these beliefs. Your wife buries a faience scarab under the hearth for prosperity, while children wear amulets to ward off disease, a precaution backed by archaeological finds of protective charms. A challenge arises. The temple priest rejects a batch of your linen, claiming a flaw in its weave could offend Amen. This accusation, though possibly a pretext for a bribe, shakes perfect offerings, risk divine wrath, as the instruction of Amenemop warns. You rework the cloth, chanting prayers to Isis for guidance, but the incident fuels village gossip. A seer interprets a recent owl sighting as a bad omen, heightening fears of a coming plague. You join neighbors in a communal offering, burning myrrh at a shrine to appease Sekhmet, goddess of healing. The Eber's papyrus mentions such rituals alongside herbal remedies, blending faith with practicality. Your family's survival depends on navigating these spiritual demands, even as your hands ache from reweaving. The pressure of superstition is relentless. You avoid certain paths rumored to be cursed and check your dreams for signs, as dream interpretation texts were common. The community, though supportive, judges those who flout tradition. A neighbor shunned for skipping a festival risks isolation. As you resume weaving, the loom's rhythm soothes you, but the fear of divine displeasure lingers. How would you use to rational explanations cope with a life where omens and rituals dictate your every move? What happens when the priest's rejection escalates, or a village calamity seems to confirm the seer's grim prophecy? Night falls over Thebes in 1450 BCE, and you, a weaver, sit by a flickering oil lamp, the weight of religious rituals and superstitions pressing heavily. The rejected linen, deemed unfit for the temple of Amun, has sparked a crisis. The priest's accusation, possibly a power play, threatens your livelihood. Imperfect offerings could anger the gods, risking famine or plague, as warned in texts. Like the Book of the Dead, the seer's owl omen, now whispered across the village, fuels fears of divine retribution. Your family, anxious, joins you in offering a loaf and beer at a household shrine to Hathor, praying for protection. In ancient Egypt, faith and fear are inseparable, and your survival hinges on navigating this spiritual maze. You act swiftly, reweaving the linen with meticulous care, chanting to Thoth for skill. You deliver it to the temple at dawn, head bowed, and the priest, mollified by your effort or a small gift of thread, accepts it. The relief is fleeting. Village gossip persists, and a neighbor's sudden fever seems to confirm the seer's warning. The community rallies, as seen in Deir el-Medina records, pooling offerings to Sekhmet and burning herbs to ward off plague. You bury a new amulet under your doorway, a scarab etched with protective spells, a practice mirrored in archaeological finds. The fever passes, and the village credits the rituals, reinforcing the power of shared belief. Your life resumes, weaving linen under the watchful eyes of gods and neighbors. Each thread you spin is a prayer, each not a ward against chaos. The temple's rituals, described in Karnak inscriptions, depend on your work, linking your labor to Egypt's divine order. Superstitions voiding cursed paths, reading omens in birds or dreams shape your routine, a delicate balance of faith and pragmatism. Your resilience, like that of millions, sustained a civilization where religion was life's pulse. The Book of the Dead's spells and temple offerings ensured Mat, enabling Egypt's grandeur, while your name faded into obscurity, reflecting under the stars. You see how your devotion, however mundane, wove the fabric of a society that endured millennia. Modern skepticism owes a debt to your blend of ritual and reason, where amulets and prayers met practical survival. The superstitions you lived by, though strange today, fostered unity and hope, building a culture that still captivates. What does it mean to live in a world where every act is a plea to the divine, and survival depends on unseen forces? Your story, etched in linen and faith, shows that even the smallest rituals, offering bread, tying knots, held a civilization together, teaching us the enduring power of belief in the face of uncertainty. Trade and travel along the river you awaken at dawn in the port town of Perunafor, near Memphis, around 1450 BCE. During Egypt's New Kingdom, the Nile's gentle lapping against red boats filling the air. As a merchant's assistant, your life revolves around trade and travel along the river, the artery that sustains ancient Egypt's economy. The Nile is more than a waterway. It's the backbone of commerce, carrying goods like grain, linen, and papyrus to distant markets. Inscriptions from the Amun-Ra letters and archaeological finds of cargo boats reveal a vibrant trade network linking Egypt to Nubia, Punt, and the Levant. Your role, though modest, is vital. You load goods, track inventories, and navigate the river's currents, all while serving the pharaoh's economic machine. Your day begins at the docks, where you help load a wooden boat with sacks of barley and jars of olive oil bound for Thebes. The boat, a flat-bottomed vessel with a single sail, is sturdy but cramped, its deck piled high with goods. You check the cargo against a papyrus list, your reed pen scratching in hieratic script, a skill learned from a scribe uncle. The Nile's current is your ally, but its hazards, sandbars, crocodiles, and sudden winds demand vigilance. Tomb reliefs from Saqqara depict such boats, manned by crews like yours, hauling goods under the watchful eyes of overseers. Your master, a merchant with ties to the royal court, expects precision. A lost shipment could mean debt or worse. As the Turin papyrus notes punishments for negligence, the journey south begins. Your crew of 6 rowing in rhythm to a chant honoring Hapi, god of the Nile. The riverbanks teem with life farmers tending, fields, children fishing, and herons stalking the shallows. You trade small talk with a boatman, swapping stories of markets in Nubia, where gold and ebony are bartered. The Nile's reliability, documented in the Palermo stone, makes this trade possible, but floods or drought could disrupt it. Your rations bread, dried fish, and beer are shared among the crew, eaten on the deck under a makeshift awning. The heat is relentless, and you wrap a linen cloth around your head, a precaution against sunstroke. Community binds you to your crew, each member skilled in navigating the river's moods. You've heard tales of bandits lurking near bends, a risk for traders carrying valuable cargo. Superstitions also guide you. You toss a small offering of bread into the water to appease Sobek, the crocodile god, a practice common among boatmen. As the boat glides toward Thebes, you wonder how you, used to modern transport, would handle this slow, perilous journey, where every mile tests your endurance and wit. What happens when a sudden storm or a bandit raid threatens your cargo, and your master's trust hangs in the balance? Midday on the Nile, 1450 BCE, and you, a merchant's assistant, stand at the bow of a reed boat gliding toward Thebes, the sun glaring off the water. Trade and travel along the river are the pulse of ancient Egypt's economy, and your role managing cargo and ensuring safe passages critical. The boat is laden with barley, linen, and alabaster jars, destined for a temple market. The Amun-Ra letters describe such trade, with merchants like your master exchanging goods for Nubian gold or Levantine cedar. Your papyrus ledger, scribbled in hieratic tracks, every item, as a single error, could draw the wrath of your master or the pharaoh's tax collectors, whose records, like those in the Wilbur papyrus, demand accuracy. The Nile is both friend and foe. Its steady current propels your boat, but hidden sandbars and shifting winds threaten disaster. You scan the river, recalling a boatman's tale of a vessel wrecked on a shallow, costing its crew their livelihood. Tomb reliefs from Deir. El-Medina show traders navigating with skill, using oars and sails to maneuver heavy loads. Your crew, a tight-knit group, shares the labor 2 row, 1 steers, and you check knots, securing the cargo. A sudden jolt log in the water tests your balance, and you grip the deck, heart racing. The crew laughs, easing the tension, but you know the risks. Crocodiles lurk in the reeds, and bandits, as mentioned in the Turin papyrus, occasionally raid remote stretches. Superstitions govern your actions. You sprinkle natron into the river, a ritual to honor Hapi and ward off misfortune, a practice seen in archaeological finds of votive offerings. Your amulet, a faience eye of Horus, dangles from your neck, believed to protect against danger. The crew shares stories of omens, a heron's flight signaling good trade, or a clouded sky warning of storms. Your rations, bread and beer, are meager but sustaining, supplemented by fish caught mid-journey. The community of boatmen is your strength, each member relying on the other's expertise. You've learned to read the Nile's ripples from an old sailor, a skill as vital as your ledger. A new challenge emerges. Dark clouds gather, and the wind picks up, rocking the boat. The crew murmurs, fearing Sobek's wrath or a bandit ambush under cover of a storm. You secure the cargo, but your master's warning echoes. Lose this shipment, and you'll face debt or exile. How would you, accustomed to GPS and secure shipping, navigate this unpredictable river, where nature and human threats test your every move? What happens when the storm hits, and the safety of your crew and cargo depends on your quick thinking under pressure? Night falls on the Nile in 1450 BCE, and you, a merchant's assistant, huddle under a linen awning as the boat rocks gently moored near a Theban village. The storm you feared struck at dusk, its winds whipping the river into frothy waves, threatening your precious cargo of barley and alabaster. Trade and travel along the Nile, the lifeblood of ancient Egypt, have tested your resilience today. The Amun-Ra letters and dockside inscriptions praise the wealth trade brings, but your survival hangs on this moment. With the crew, you battled the storm, securing jars and bailing water, your hands raw from ropes. The gods, it seems, spared you Hapi's mercy, perhaps, or your offering of bread to Sobek earlier. The crisis wasn't just natural. As the storm cleared, bandits emerged from the reeds, eyeing your cargo. You and the crew, armed only with oars and a bronze dagger, stood firm, shouting to scare them off, a tactic learned from seasoned boatmen. The bandits fled, but the encounter, like those noted in the Turin papyrus, underscores the river's dangers. You reach Thebes at dawn, delivering the cargo intact. Your master, inspecting the goods, grants a rare nod of approval, adding a small sack of lentils to your rations. The market hums as priests and traders barter, your linen and grain fueling their commerce, a cycle documented in the Wilbur papyrus. The journey's toll lingers, your shoulders ache, and a crewmate nurses a sprained wrist bound with linen. And natron, per the Eber's papyrus, the community of boatmen, your lifeline, shares beer and stories of past voyages, their bond forged in shared peril. Your role, though humble, drives Egypt's economy, connecting villages to distant lands. The Nile's flow, predictable yet treacherous, enabled a civilization's wealth. Your survival through storms, bandits, and divine whimsmeres. The tenacity of countless traders whose names never graced hieroglyphs, reflecting under the stars. You see how your perilous journeys wove Egypt's prosperity. Modern trade, with its ships and logistics, owes a debt to your ingenuity using sails, reading currents, and bartering under pressure. The superstitions and rituals that guided you, from amulets to offerings, fostered courage in a world of uncertainty. What does it mean to risk everything for a cargo that feeds an empire, yet leaves you anonymous? Your story, carried on the Nile's currents, shows that even the most perilous tasks, steering through storms, guarding goods-built civilizations, wealth, teaching us the enduring value of grit and community in the face of nature's and humanity's challenges. Family life and education in the household you awaken in a modest mud-brick home in the workman's village of Deir el-Medina, around 1300 BCE, during Egypt's New Kingdom. As a painter decorating royal tombs, your life is anchored by family, the heart of ancient Egyptian society. Your household wife, 3 children, and an elderly mother bustles with activity, each member contributing to survival in a world where community and tradition shape every moment. Family life and education, as revealed by archaeological finds from Deir el-Medina and texts like the instruction of any revolve around practical skills, moral teachings, and devotion to the gods. Your home, though simple, is a hub of learning and labor, where children are raised to uphold Ma'at, the cosmic order. Your day begins with your wife stoking the clay oven to bake bread, the scent filling the small courtyard. Your children, aged 5 to 12, help with chores, fetching water, grinding grain, or feeding the goats. Education in your household is informal. Unlike the scribal schools reserved for elite boys, you teach your eldest son to mix pigments for tomb painting, guiding his hands to grind ochre with a stone pestle. Daughters learn weaving and cooking from their mother, skills vital for marriage, as seen in astraca, pottery shards recording family duties. The instruction of Ani emphasizes respect and obedience, and you instill these values through stories of Osiris and Isis, told under the stars. Your home reflects the community's tight-knit bonds. Neighbors share tools and food, and children play together, learning through imitation. Archaeological evidence shows Deir el-Medina homes filled with amulets and small altars, signaling devotion to Base and Hathor, protectors of families. You offer bread at a household shrine, praying for health as superstitions about illness or bad omens linger. Your mother, her hands gnarled from years of weaving, recounts tales of past floods, teaching resilience. Education is practically your son learns to measure walls for painting, while your daughters master loom patterns, but it's also moral, rooted in respect for elders and gods. The demands of family life are relentless. Your wife barters linen for lentils, stretching rations of bread and beer. The Palermo stone notes state support for workers, but scarcity is a constant threat. Your children's laughter, as they mimic your brushstrokes, is a fleeting joy amid the grind. You wonder how you, accustomed to modern schooling and nuclear families, would adapt to this communal, duty-bound life, where education is survival and every task serves the household. What happens when a child's mistake, perhaps a spilled pigment or a broken loom, strains the family's resources, testing the balance of love and discipline? Midday in Deir el-Medina, 1300 BCE, and you, a tomb painter, pause to eat bread and onions with your family, the sun blazing overhead. Family life and education in your ancient Egyptian household are a delicate balance of labor, learning, and devotion, each member bound by roles that sustain both home and community. Your eldest son, training to follow your trade, struggles to mix pigments correctly, his frustration evident. Your daughters, helping their mother weave linen, giggle over a dropped spindle, but their work is serious. Textiles are bartered for food, as seen in Astraca from this village. The instruction of any stresses diligence, and you gently correct your children, teaching them that errors, while human, carry consequences in a world of scarce resources. Education is hands-on, rooted in survival. Your son learns by watching. You paint tomb walls, copying hieroglyphs with a reed brush. You teach him to honor Ptah, god of craftsmen, with a small offering of beer, a ritual seen in Deir el-Medina artifacts. Your daughters absorb their mother's skills, kneading dough, sewing, and chanting hymns to Hathor for fertility and protection. These lessons, though practical, are laced with morality. You tell stories of Marat, urging honesty and respect. Archaeological finds reveal children's toys, wooden dolls, clay balls showing play was part of learning, but only after chores. Your mother, now frail, teaches proverbs, her wisdom a bridge to the past. The community reinforces this education. Neighbors gather for festivals, where children learn dances and hymns, as depicted in tomb reliefs. A friend's son, training as a scribe, visits, showing off his hieratic script. Your family's survival depends on collective effort. Your wife trades a painted jar for natron, while you share paint with a neighbor. Yet tension arises. Your son's sloppy pigment mix ruins a batch, wasting costly minerals. The loss stings, as resources are tight, and the village gossip, quick to judge, could harm your reputation. The Eber's papyrus mentions remedies for stress, but you rely on family unity. Calming your son with a tale of Osiris's resilience, the strain of teaching and providing weighs heavily. You pray at the household shrine, fearing divine displeasure if your children falter. How would you use to structured schools and personal freedom navigate this world where family is both refuge and responsibility, and education is a daily act of survival? What happens when your son's mistake draws scrutiny from the village overseer, threatening your family's standing in this close-knit community? Night falls over Deir el-Medina in 1300 BCE, and you, a tomb painter, sit with your family, the glow of an oil lamp casting shadows on your mud brick walls. The ruined pigment batch, caused by your son's error, has sparked a crisis. The village overseer, inspecting your work for the royal tomb, noticed the shortfall and demands an explanation. In ancient Egypt, family life and education are intertwined with community expectations, and your household's mistake risks not just your reputation, but your rations, as noted in the Turin papyrus. The pressure to raise disciplined children while sustaining your home tests your resilience, a struggle shared by countless families in this era. You confront the issue with care, gathering your family to discuss the error, your son, ashamed, promises to practice mixing pigments diligently. You and your wife rework the budget, trading extra linen to replace the lost materials. A common practice seen in Deir el-Medina, Astraca. Vouching grants leniency, but warns of closer scrutiny. The village rallies your mother, shares a story of her own youthful mistakes, easing tensions, while a friend offers ochre to tide you over. This communal support, reflected in archaeological records, underscores the strength of family and village ties, where education extends beyond skills to collective survival. Your household resumes its rhythm. Your son refines his painting, your daughters weave with renewed focus, and you offer thanks to Hathor at the shrine, crediting her for the resolution. Education, as the instruction of any advises, is about perseverance and respect, lessons your children absorb through this ordeal. Your family's labor painting, weaving, praying fuels Egypt's spiritual and economic life, supporting tombs that honor the pharaoh's eternity. Your name may not grace hieroglyphs, but your role, like that of millions, built a civilization's legacy, as seen in the enduring art of Thebes, reflecting under the stars. You see how your family's quiet endurance wove the fabric of Egypt's society. Modern education, with its classrooms and choice, owes a debt to your practical teaching skills, honed through necessity, values rooted in community. The balance of discipline and love you maintained mirrors timeless family struggles. What does it mean to raise a family where every mistake tests survival, yet every lesson strengthens the whole? Your story, etched in daily acts of teaching and toil, shows that family life, though uncelebrated, was the heartbeat of a civilization, teaching us the power of unity and resilience in shaping a lasting legacy. Crafting tools and goods by hand, you rise at dawn in a small workshop in Memphis, around 1400 BCE, during Egypt's New Kingdom, the air sharp with the scent of wood shavings and heated bronze. As a craftsman specializing in tools and household goods, your life is defined by the meticulous art of creating by hand, a skill vital to ancient Egypt's survival and splendor. From chisels to pottery, your work supports farmers, builders, and priests, underpinning the economy. Archaeological finds from Amun-Ra and texts like the Satire of the Trades highlight the importance of artisans, whose hands shaped the tools that built pyramids and sustained households. Your craft, though respected, demands endless labor in a world without modern machinery. Your morning begins in your open-air workshop, a mud-brick space cluttered with raw materials, flint, copper, and acacia wood. You're crafting a set of bronze chisels for a tomb builder, heating a small furnace with charcoal to melt the metal. The process, depicted in Saqqara tomb reliefs, is grueling. You pour molten bronze into clay molds, your hands steady despite the heat. Each chisel must be sharp and durable, as a flawed tool could delay sacred work, risking the pharaoh's wrath, as hinted in the Turin papyrus. You also shape a clay jug, spinning it on a simple wheel, your fingers slick with Nile mud. Precision is everything. Your goods are bartered for food or offered to temples. Your tools are basic but ingenious. A bow drill, powered by hand, bores holes in wood, while a stone anvil shapes flint blades. The instruction of Ptahhotep praises artisans for their skill, but your work leaves little room for error. You pause to sip beer and chew bread, rations, earned through trade, as the Karnak papers describe. The community values your craft. Neighbors rely on your sickles for harvest and jars for storage, but you're one step above laborers. Your status, modest. You pray to Ptah, god of craftsmen, offering a small clay figure at a shrine, a ritual scene in Deir el-Medina finds. To ensure your hands remain steady, the workshop hums with purpose, but the physical toll is heavy. Your fingers ache from repetitive tasks, and dust irritates your lungs, a common ailment in skeletal remains from this era. As you hammer a chisel, you wonder how you, used to power tools and factories, would endure this relentless craft, where every item is born of sweat and skill in a dusty courtyard. What happens when a flawed tool reaches a client, or a rush order? For a temple strains your limited resources. Midday in Memphis, 1400 BCE, and you, a craftsman, wipe sweat from your brow as you polish a bronze adze in your workshop. Crafting tools and goods by hand is the backbone of ancient Egypt's daily life, your creations enabling everything from farming to tomb building. The adze, destined for a carpenter in Thebes, must be flawless. Its blade, forged in a clay furnace, is sharpened with a sandstone wheel, a technique seen in Amun-Ra excavations. Your workshop, a cramped space of mud brick walls, holds stacks of flint, acacia logs, and clay pots, each item shaped with tools unchanged for generations. The satire of the trades exalts your skill over laborers, but the pressure to produce perfect goods for trade or tribute is unrelenting. A new challenge arises. A temple priest orders a dozen clay offering bowls for a festival, due in 3 days. The deadline is tight, as clay must be molded, dried, and fired in a kiln fueled by scarce wood. You work alongside your apprentice, a young nephew learning to shape flint knives, his hands clumsy but eager. The instruction of any urges, teaching through patience, but mistakes cost time and materials. You show him how to knead Nile clay, free of lumps, and fire it evenly, a skill honed through years. Archaeological finds from Deir el-Medina reveal artisans' reliance on family labor, with children often assisting in workshops, just as yours do. The community sustains you. A neighbor trades barley for a sickle, while another shares charcoal for your furnace. Yet the physical strain mounts, your shoulders ache from hammering, and your eyes sting from smoke. Ailments common in artisans' remains. Superstitions guide your craft. You sprinkle natron on the kiln to honor Ptah, fearing a cracked pot could anger the gods, as temple records warn. A flawed adze you sent last week has drawn complaints, risking your reputation. The Turin papyrus notes artisans fined for shoddy work, and you dread losing trade. You rework the blade, bartering extra hours to appease the client. The workshop's rhythm is relentless. Each tool and pot a small victory in a world of manual labor. You wonder how you, accustomed to electric tools and mass production, would cope with this slow, precise craft, where every stroke carries the weight of survival and divine expectation. What happens when the temple's bowls crack in the kiln, or the priest demands perfection under threat of withheld payment? Night falls over Memphis in 1400 BCE, and you, a craftsman, sit by your workshop's dying kiln. the glow illuminating stacks of freshly fired clay bowls. The rush order for the temple of Amun has tested your skill in crafting tools and goods. By hand, a cornerstone of ancient Egypt's economy. Several bowls cracked during firing, a disaster that could anger the priest and cost you vital trade. As the Turin Papyrus records penalties for flawed work, in a world where every tool and vessel supports farmers, builders, or priests, your mistake threatens your family's survival and your standing in the community. Where artisans, though valued, are judged harshly, you act swiftly, working through the night to mold new bowls, your apprentice stoking the kiln with care. You offer a small clay figure to Ptah, praying for a successful firing, a ritual common in Deir el-Medina finds. The community rallies a neighbor, lends wood for the kiln. Another shares a meal of bread and fish to keep you going. By dawn, the new bowls are perfect, their smooth curves meeting the priest's standards. He accepts them with a grunt, paying in grain and a copper deben, a relief that secures your rations. The crisis, though averted, underscores the fragility of your craft, where skill and luck intertwine. Your workshop resumes, its rhythm chisels sharpened, pots spun, flint knapped, each item a testament to your endurance. Your apprentice, learning from the ordeal, handles clay with new respect. The community's support, seen in Astraca recording bartered goods, binds you to neighbors who rely on your tools as you rely on their grain. Your work, though uncelebrated, in hieroglyphs fuels Egypt's greatness, from temples to tombs, as Amun-Ra artifacts show. Modern industry, with its machines and precision, owes a debt to your ingenuity. Hand-forged bronze and hand-spun clay laid the foundation for progress. Reflecting under the stars, you see how your labor, though grueling, shaped a civilization. The satire of the trades praises your craft, yet it's your resilience reworking flawed goods, honoring gods, leaning on community that sustained Egypt's legacy. What does it mean to create with only hands and heart, where every tool carries the weight of survival? Your story, etched in bronze and clay, shows that even the humblest crafts, forged with grit and skill, built an empire's enduring wonders, teaching us the value of perseverance in a world without machines. Surviving the annual floods, you awaken in a mud brick home in a small village near Abydos. Around 1400 BCE, during Egypt's New Kingdom, the distant roar of the Nile signaling the start of the annual inundation. As a farmer, your life is tied to the river's rhythms, its floods, both a blessing and a threat to your survival. The annual inundation, celebrated in texts like the Hymn to the Nile, transforms the arid land into fertile fields, depositing rich silt that feeds Egypt's agriculture. But the flood's power, unpredictable in its intensity, can destroy homes and crops. As recorded in the Palermo stone, your task is to protect your family and fields. Navigating the deluge with ancient knowledge and communal effort, your morning begins with checking the Nile's rising waters, already lapping at the edge of your barley fields. You and your neighbors reinforce mud embankments, piling earth and straw to guide the flood into irrigation canals, a technique seen in Saqqara reliefs. The work is backbreaking, your feet sinking into the muddy banks, but precision is vital. Much water could drown your crops, too little could starve them. You use a shadoof, a wooden lever with a bucket to lift water into higher fields, a tool found in archaeological digs. Your family joins in, your children hauling smaller loads, their hands caked with silt. The community's survival depends on this collective effort, as no single farmer can tame the Nile alone. Superstitions guide your actions. You offer a handful of grain to Hapi, god of the flood, at a small riverside shrine. A ritual echoed in Deir el-Medina finds. The village seer warns of a high flood, citing a dream of turbulent waters, and you tie an amulet of Isis to your wrist for protection. Your rations, bread, beer, and onions are shared with neighbors, sustaining you through long days. The flood silt promises a bountiful harvest, but its force threatens your home, already leaking from last year's damage. Skeletal remains from this era show signs of strain from such labor, and your back aches as you pile more mud. That the inundation is both lifeblood and peril. You wonder how you, used to modern flood controls and weather forecasts, would face this annual gamble where the Nile's mood determines whether your family eats or starves. What happens when the flood surges beyond control, threatening your home and fields, and the village must decide how to survive? Midday near Abydos, 1400 BCE, and you, a farmer, stand knee-deep in Nile mud, strengthening embankments as the floodwaters rise. Surviving the annual floods is the heartbeat of ancient Egyptian life, the Nile's silt promising crops, but its power threatening destruction. The hymn to the Nile praises its bounty, yet the Palermo stone records years when floods washed away villages. Your fields, planted with barley and emmer, depend on your skill to channel water through canals, a system seen in Amun-Ra excavations. You wield a wooden hoe, digging trenches to guide the flood, while your wife and children pile reeds to reinforce the banks, their faces streaked with mud. The community is your strength. Neighbors work side by side, sharing tools and chanting to Hapi for a balanced flood. A friend's shadoof breaks, and you lend yours, a gesture common in Deir el-Medina records of communal aid. But the flood is higher than expected, lapping at your home's foundation. You recall tales of past inundations that swept away entire harvests, leaving families to barter labor for food. Superstitions loom large. You avoid stepping in stagnant pools, feared as spirit haunts, and wear a fake amulet of Sobek, the crocodile god, for safety. The Eber's papyrus mentions flood-related injuries, and your hands, raw from hauling mud, sting with every move. A new threat emerges, a breach in the village's main embankment, spotted by your son. Water pours through, threatening nearby fields. You rally the village, men and women piling stones and mud to seal the gap, a desperate race against the river. The effort strains your body's skeletal remains from this era show worn joints. From such labor, but failure could mean starvation. The seer's warning of a turbulent flood haunts you, and you offer another handful of grain at the shrine, praying for mercy. Your rations, now soggy bread and warm beer, are shared sparingly, as supplies dwindle under the flood's demands. The village holds its breath, united yet fragile. You wonder how you, accustomed to dams and drainage systems, would endure this primal struggle, where every shovel of mud is a fight for survival against the Nile's untamed power. What happens when the breach worsens and the village faces the loss of crops and homes, testing the limits of your collective resolve. Night blankets your village near Abydos in 1400 BCE, and you, a farmer, stand exhausted by the Nile. The flood's roar, a constant reminder of its power. The breached embankment, barely patched by your village's frantic efforts, has left fields flooded and your home's walls crumbling. Surviving the annual floods, the lifeblood of ancient Egypt has pushed your community to the brink. The hymn to the Nile celebrates the river's gifts, but the Palermo stone warns of its wrath, and this year's deluge threatens to erase your barley crop. Your family, soaked and weary, huddles in a neighbor's higher ground home, sharing dwindling rations of bread and fish. You act with urgency, leading the village to rebuild the embankment with stones hauled from a nearby quarry. Children carry reeds, women mix mud, and men stack barriers. A collective effort mirrored in Deir el-Medina Ostraka. You offer a clay figurine to Hapi, praying for the waters to recede. A ritual seen in archaeological finds. The flood slows, and your fields, though damaged, retain enough silt for planting. The village headman redistributes stored grain, a system noted in the Wilbur Papyrus, ensuring no family starves. Your son, learning from the crisis, helps repair a shadoof, his hands steadier now. The community's resilience, forged in mud and prayer, holds firm. Your home, patched with fresh mud, stands as a testament to survival. The flood's silt, though destructive, promises a future harvest, sustaining Egypt's agriculture as it has for centuries. Your labor, unrecorded in hieroglyphs, mirrors that of millions whose fields fed an empire. Modern flood control, with its levees and forecasts, owes a debt to your ingenuity. Canals, shadoofs, and communal grit. The superstitions that guided you, from amulets to offerings, fostered hope amid chaos. What does it mean to face a river's wrath, where every effort is a gamble for survival? Your story, etched in silt and sweat, shows that even the most perilous seasons met with unity, and resilience built a civilization's bounty, teaching us the enduring power of collective will in the face of nature's might. Navigating the afterlife beliefs you awaken in a modest home in Saqqara around 1350 BCE. During Egypt's New Kingdom, the air heavy with the scent of incense from a small household shrine, as a scribe copying sacred texts for a local temple. Your life is steeped in ancient Egypt's intricate beliefs about the afterlife, a realm as real to you as the Nile's flow. The Book of the Dead and tomb inscriptions emphasize that death is a journey, requiring preparation to navigate the underworld and achieve eternal life with Osiris. Your role, writing spells to guide souls, connects you to these beliefs, shaping your daily rituals and your hopes for eternity. Yet, as a commoner, you lack the wealth for grand tombs, making your spiritual preparations a delicate balance of faith and resourcefulness. Your morning begins with a prayer to Thoth, god of writing, as you offer a small loaf at the shrine, a ritual seen in Deir el-Medina artifacts. You head to the temple, carrying a papyrus scroll with spells from the Book of the Dead, meant to protect a deceased noble in the afterlife. The text describes trials facing the demon Ammit, weighing the heart against Mat-S Featherand. You inscribe charms to ensure safe passage. Your own afterlife preparations are humbler. A small amulet of Anubis, bought with a month's wages, and a vow to live justly as the instruction of Amenemop advises. Archaeological finds show even laborers saved for such charms, hoping for Osiris's mercy. Superstitions permeate your life. You avoid speaking the names of the dead at night, fearing their spirits might linger, and keep a faience scarab by your bed to ward off evil. The community shares these beliefs. Neighbors gather to mourn a deceased elder, chanting spells to guide her soul, a practice depicted in Theban tomb reliefs. Your family, aware of the afterlife's trials, helps you practice moral living, avoiding lies or theft to keep your heart light for judgment. Your work, though sacred, is exhausting, your fingers stained with ink and eyes strained from dim lamplight, as skeletal remains from scribes suggest. The afterlife looms large, a journey you prepare for daily through rituals and good deeds. You wonder how you, used to modern skepticism, would embrace a world where every act is weighed for eternity, and salvation depends on spells and virtue. What happens when a mistake in your scroll risks a soul's fate, or a personal failing threatens your own afterlife prospects? Midday in Saqqara, 1350 BCE, and you, a scribe, sit under a temple awning, reed pen in hand, copying spells from the Book of the Dead onto papyrus. Navigating ancient Egypt's afterlife beliefs is your life's work. Each word you write a lifeline for souls facing the underworld's trials. The text, used by nobles and adapted for commoners, details Denjurza Lake of Fire, the heart-weighing ceremony and spells to appease Osiris and Anubis. Your own preparations are modest, a clay Ushabti figure, meant to labor for you in the afterlife, and daily prayers to Thoth, as seen in Karnak inscriptions. Your role elevates you slightly above laborers, but the spiritual weight of your task, ensuring a soul's eternity, is immense. A crisis emerges. A priest notices a smudged hieroglyph in your scroll, a potential offense to the gods that could doom the deceased's journey. The Turin papyrus records scribes punished for errors, and you fear losing your temple post. You rework the scroll, chanting to Thoth for clarity, your hands trembling. Superstitions amplify your anxiety. You spill natron on the floor to purify your workspace, fearing divine wrath, a practice common in Deir el-Medina households. The community watches closely. A neighbor whose son died last year begs you to inscribe an extra spell for his soul, offering a loaf in trade. You comply, knowing the afterlife's trials unite the village in shared hope and fear. Your family reinforces these beliefs. Your wife teaches your children to honor Mat, avoiding deceit to keep their hearts light for judgment. At home, you maintain a shrine with a small Anubis statue, where you offer beer to ensure your soul's protection. Archaeological finds show such shrines in every home, reflecting a society obsessed with eternity. The physical toll of scribing, hands, aching eyes, as seen in scribes' skeletal remains, mirrors the spiritual strain of living for the afterlife. You check your own conduct, haunted by the instruction of Amun-Ra's warning that a heavy heart fails Osiris's scale. The priest accepts your corrected scroll, but the incident lingers, a reminder of your fragile role in a cosmic order. You wonder how you, accustomed to secular routines, would bear the constant pressure of preparing for an afterlife, where every word and deed is judged. What happens when a personal sin, perhaps a lie to secure rations, jeopardizes your own heart's purity, threatening your eternal fate? Night falls over Saqqara in 1350 BCE, and you, a scribe, sit by a flickering lamp, the weight of ancient Egypt's afterlife beliefs pressing heavily. The smudged scroll crisis has passed, but a new fear grips you. To secure extra rations during a lean month, you exaggerated a neighbor's debt, a lie that could taint your heart for Osiris's judgment. The Book of the Dead warns that a heart heavy with sin fails the feather of Mat, risking annihilation by Amit. Your life spent writing spells to guide others through the underworld now faces a personal reckoning as your own afterlife hangs in balance in a society where every act echoes into eternity. You act to atone, confessing to the neighbor and offering a clay ushabti as amends, a gesture rooted in the communal values seen in Deir el-Medina Astraca. You purify yourself with natron and pray at your Anubis shrine, vowing to live justly as the instruction of Amenemop urges. The community supports you. Your wife leads the children in a hymn to Isis, while a friend shares a spell to lighten your heart, a practice reflected in Theban tomb texts. The neighbor forgives you, and the village, bound by shared faith, rallies to restore Mat. Your corrected scroll reaches the temple, and a priest's nod reaffirms your role. Easing your fears of divine punishment, your life resumes, inscribing spells and teaching your children to honor truth, each act a step toward a pure heart. Your work, though uncelebrated, ensures the spiritual survival of others, linking you to Egypt's eternal legacy. The Book of the Dead's rituals, etched by your hand, sustained a civilization's hope for immortality, as seen in enduring tomb art. Modern spirituality, with its varied beliefs, owes a debt to your meticulous faith spells, amulets, and moral living as paths to salvation. What does it mean to live for an afterlife where every deed is weighed and redemption requires both action and prayer? Your story, written in ink and contrition, shows that even the humblest scribe, navigating sin and sanctity, helped weave a culture's eternal dreams, teaching us the power of faith and amends in facing life's ultimate judgment. The role of women in society you awaken in a bustling household in Thebes. Around 1350 BCE, during Egypt's New Kingdom, the scent of baking bread filling your mud brick home. As a woman managing the household of an artisan, your role in ancient Egyptian society is both vital and complex, blending domestic duties with economic and spiritual contributions. Women in Egypt, as depicted in tomb reliefs and texts, like the instruction of any eld, significant responsibilities, from raising children to managing resources, and occasionally wielded influence as priestesses or landowners. Yet, your status is defined by family and tradition, navigating a world where men hold formal power, but women sustain its heart. Your morning begins with kneading dough for bread, a task central to feeding your family of 5. You grind immer wheat on a stone quern, your hands calloused from years of labor. As archaeological finds from Deir el-Medina show women as key providers, you also weave linen, a skill learned from your mother, bartering the cloth for fish or natron at the market. The Wilbur Papyrus records women trading goods, a sign of economic agency. Though you defer to your husband in public dealings. Your daughters help, learning to spin thread, while your son assists his father, reflecting the gendered roles described in the satire of the trades. You teach them all to honor Hathor, goddess of motherhood, with a small offering of milk at a household shrine. The community relies on women's work. Neighbors share yeast and childcare, their homes adorned with base amulets for protection, as seen in Amun-Ra excavations. Superstitions guide you, avoid sweeping at night to keep spirits at bay, a belief common in village lore. Your influence extends to spiritual life as a lay priestess for Hathor. You chant hymns during festivals, a role open to women, as Karnak inscriptions note. Yet, your labor is endless, and physical strain evident in skeletal remains showing worn joints marks your days. Your husband respects your counsel, but legal texts like the Turin Papyrus show women's rights were limited, especially in disputes. Your role, though uncelebrated in hieroglyphs, is the backbone of your household and village. You wonder how you, used to modern gender dynamics, would navigate this blend of power and constraint, where your work sustains a family, but tradition binds your voice. What happens when a dispute over your traded linen threatens your family's resources, or a chance to lead a festival ritual tests your influence? Midday in Thebes, 1350 BCE, and you, a woman managing an artisan's household, pause from weaving linen to share beer with a neighbor. The role of women in ancient Egyptian society is both indispensable and nuanced, your labor weaving the fabric of family and community life. Your morning was spent baking bread and teaching your daughters to weave, skills vital for survival, as seen in Deir el-Medina. Your woven linen, traded for grain or oil, fuels the household economy, a practice noted in the Wilbur Papyrus. Yet, your influence is tempered by tradition, while you manage resources. Your husband's name seals market deals, reflecting the gendered hierarchy in the instruction of any. A dispute arises. A merchant claims your linen is flawed, demanding a refund of the barley you received. The accusation stings, as your family relies on that grain, and village gossip, quick to spread, could harm your reputation. The Turin Papyrus shows women defending their rights in trade disputes, but as a woman, you must navigate carefully. Enlisting your husband to argue your case, you rework the linen, your fingers aching, and offer a small clay figure to Hathor, praying for resolution, a ritual common in Amun-Ra households. The community supports you, neighbors vouch for your skill, and a friend shares natron to purify your workspace, reinforcing the bonds that sustain village life. Your spiritual role adds depth to your influence. As a lay priestess, you prepare for a Hathor festival, practicing chants with other women, a duty depicted in Karnak reliefs. This role elevates your status, but its demanding balancing household tasks with temple duties strains your time. Superstitions shape your actions. You wear a faience ankh for protection and avoid weaving during a storm, fearing divine displeasure. The physical toll evident in skeletal remains, showing arthritis from grinding grain mirrors. The emotional weight of maintaining mat in your home. Your children learn from your resilience, but the dispute lingers, threatening your family's stability. You wonder how you, accustomed to modern equality, would balance this life of quiet power and societal limits, where your skills drive survival, but your voice is often indirect. What happens when the merchant escalates the dispute, or the festival offers a chance to gain favor, testing your place in this delicate social order. Night falls over Thebes in 1350 BCE, and you, a woman managing an artisan's household, sit by a flickering lamp, mending linen as your children sleep. The dispute over your traded cloth has escalated. The merchant, refusing your reworked linen, demands repayment, threatening to appeal to the village council. The role of women in ancient Egypt, vital yet constrained, places you in a precarious position. The Turin Papyrus notes, women's limited legal standing, and a loss could deplete your family's rations, already stretched thin. Your life, weaving sustenance and spirituality, now hinges on navigating this crisis while preparing for the Hathor festival, where your role as a lay priestess could shift your standing. You act with resolve, enlisting a respected neighbor to mediate, a strategy seen in Deir el-Medina, records of community support. You offer extra linen and a heartfelt apology, invoking Mat to restore harmony. The merchant relents, accepting the goods, and the council is avoided, preserving your family's honor. At the festival, you lead a chant to Hathor, your voice rising with other women, earning nods from temple elders, as Karnak inscriptions describe such roles. The community celebrates, sharing beer and bread, their unity a bulwark against hardship. Your daughters, watching, learn the power of diplomacy and devotion, lessons as vital as weaving. Your daily grind resumes baking, weaving, praying's task, sustaining your household and Egypt's broader society. Your labor, unrecorded in grand annals, mirrors that of countless women whose work fed, clothed, and honored a civilization as seen in Amun-Ra artifacts. Modern gender roles, with their push for equality, owe a debt to your quiet influence managing resources, leading rituals, and resolving disputes with tact. The superstitions and duties that shaped you fostered resilience in a world of constraint. What does it mean to wield power through service, where your voice shapes a community, but rarely a law? Your story, woven in linen and hymns, shows that women's unsung roles, nurturing, creating, mediating, built Egypt's enduring legacy, teaching us the strength of subtle influence in a world of rigid traditions. The influence of priests and temples you awaken in a small chamber within the temple precinct of Karnak, around 1350 BCE, during Egypt's New Kingdom, the air thick with the scent of myrrh burning on an altar. As a junior priest serving the cult of Amun-Ra, your life is defined by the immense influence of priests and temples, the spiritual and economic heart of ancient Egypt. Temples, as described in inscriptions from Karnak and the Book of the Dead, are not just places of worship, but centers of power, controlling vast lands, resources, and knowledge. Your role, though low in the priestly hierarchy, connects you to the divine, shaping your days with rituals and responsibilities that uphold Ma'at, the cosmic order. Your morning begins with purification, washing with natron-laced water before entering the sanctuary to offer bread and beer to Amun's statue, a ritual depicted in temple reliefs. The high priest, a figure of authority, oversees the ceremony, his shaved head and leopard skin robe marking his status. You chant hymns from a papyrus scroll, your voice joining others in a plea for the gods' favor, ensuring the Nile's floods and the pharaohs' strength. The temple's wealth, documented in the Harris Papyrus, funds your rations, fine bread, meat, and wine, far richer than a farmer's fare. Yet your duties are relentless, requiring precision. As a misspoken prayer could anger the gods, a fear rooted in the instruction of Amenemop, the community revolves around the temple. Artisans craft offerings, farmers deliver grain, and villagers seek blessings, their lives tied to your rituals. Superstitions guide you wear a faience ankh amulet and avoid stepping on shadows believed to harbor spirits. Archaeological finds from Deir el-Medina show priests as community pillars, dispensing oracles and healing. Your role, though sacred, carries physical strain, sore throats from chanting and eyes strained from dim lamplight, as skeletal remains suggest. You feel the weight of serving both gods and people, your every act a bridge between mortal and divine. You wonder how you used to modern secularism would navigate this life where priests wield power over souls and society, and every ritual carries the weight of eternity. What happens when a ritual error risks divine displeasure, or a temple decision stirs tension in the community? Midday in Karnak, 1350 BCE, and you, a junior priest, stand in the temple's inner court, incense curling around Amun's golden statue. The influence of priests and temples in ancient Egypt shapes every facet of life, from spiritual salvation to economic control. Your morning was spent chanting spells and offering incense, rituals described in the Book of the Dead to ensure Mat and the pharaoh's divine mandate. The temple, a sprawling complex detailed in the Harris Papyrus, owns vast estates, employing farmers and artisans whose labor funds its grandeur. Your role, though minor, is critically your chance, and offerings maintain the cosmic balance, a duty that elevates you above common laborers but binds you to strict discipline. A crisis emerges during a ritual. You stumble over a sacred hymn, a mistake noticed by the high priest. Errors in worship, as warned in the instruction of Amenemop, could provoke Amun's wrath, risking drought or plague. You correct yourself, offering extra myrrh, but the high priest demands you fast for a day as penance, a practice seen in temple records. The community feels the ripple. Villagers, dependent on the temple's blessings, whisper of omens, citing a recent dust storm as a sign of divine unrest. You wear a scarab amulet and sprinkle natron to purify your space. Superstitions rooted in Deir el-Medina finds, fearing further mistakes could harm your standing. Your duties extend beyond rituals. You distribute grain to workers, a task showing the temple's economic power, as noted in the Wilbur Papyrus. Villagers seek your prayers for sick children, and you apply natron poultices, blending faith and medicine, as the Eber's Papyrus describes. The physical toll horse voice, aching knees from kneeling mirrors, the spiritual pressure of serving. Amen. The community, though reverent, expects perfection, their faith in the temple unwavering. You train a young acolyte, teaching him hymns, passing on the sacred knowledge that sustains Egypt's spiritual life. The temple's influence is a double-edged sword, granting you purpose but demanding flawlessness. You wonder how you, accustomed to individual freedom, would bear this life where every word and act carries divine consequence, shaping both your fate and the community's. What happens when a temple decreeper haps a new tax-sparks village unrest, testing your loyalty to both gods and people? Night falls over Karnak, in 1350 BCE, and you, a junior priest, kneel by a temple altar. The glow of oil lamps illuminating Amun's statue, the influence of priests and temples, central to ancient Egypt's spiritual and economic life, has tested you. The high priest's decree to increase grain tributes for a new temple wing, justified by divine will, has sparked unrest in the village. Farmers, already strained, protest the tax, their complaints echoing in Deir el-Medina, Astraka. As a priest, you're caught between loyalty to the temple, as demanded by the Harris Papyrus, and the community's pleas, their survival tied to your rituals and the temple's resources. You act with caution, mediating between the high priest and villagers. You suggest a smaller tribute, offering to chant extra hymns to appease Amen, a compromise rooted in the temple's role as a community anchor. The high priest relents, swayed by your service and village elders' pleas, preserving Mat. You lead a festival ritual, chanting to Ra, and distribute extra grain, easing tensions. The community, grateful, offers bread at your shrine, their faith in the temple restored. Your acolyte, learning from this, memorizes spells with new focus, ensuring the temple's legacy, as seen in Karnak inscriptions. Your life resumes prayers, offerings, healing each act, reinforcing the temple's power. Your role, though minor, sustains Egypt's spiritual and economic order, a silent force behind its grandeur. The physical strain, sore throat, weary limbs, mirrors the emotional weight of balancing divine duty and human need. Modern, secular societies owe a debt to your blend of faith and diplomacy, managing resources and belief to unify a civilization. What does it mean to wield influence through rituals, where your voice shapes eternity but risks alienating those you serve? Your story, etched in incense and compromise, shows that priests, navigating divine and mortal demands, were the heartbeat of Egypt's enduring legacy, teaching us the power of faith and mediation in a world where gods and people intertwine.